It's for the West Coast. It's for the West Coast. Keep them dubs in the sky. Yeah. Check it out. Yeah. Yo, this jam is going out to the West Coast. Vibe straight from the side with the best smoke. Out in the West, we keep it dope from top to bottom. We've got the best herbs. If you looking, not a problem. We also got the sea. Right. It's for the West Coast. It's for the West Coast. Keep them dubs in the sky. Yeah. Check it out. Yeah. Yo, this jam is going out to the West Coast. Vibe straight from the side with the best smoke. Out in the West, we keep it dope from top to bottom. We've got the best herbs. If you looking, not a problem. We also got the scenery and culture to match it. You can hit the I-5 and you'll be coasting through the magic. A summertime in Seatown can never be beat. The sun is shining, we got people out on every street. At the parks and on the shores. Some are moving farther when the weather's harder. You can see them cruising on the water. Move a little south and you'll be cruising through my habitat. Represent that 253rd, that's where the tag is at. The first place that I was known for dropping science. I was writing smoking spliffs on the cliffs of Point Defiance. Back in the day when there was just one bridge that crossed the narrows and the world was seeing just some kid. Yeah. No matter where I'm posting, you can find me West Coasting. Flowing by the ocean, smoking downs a fresh potent. That's how it's going on the left of your map. We throwing dubs, we showing it's the West where we at. Yo, no matter where I'm posting, you can find me West Coasting. Flowing by the ocean, smoking downs a fresh potent. That's how it's going on the left of your map. We throwing dubs, we showing it's the West where we at. Yeah. Let's keep it going, time to give it up for Portland. The city full of roses where the Doja Chief is potent. The city keeps it strong because the city's open-minded. And educated conversations ain't too hard to find. My favorite spot is Front Street, off the Willamette. Catch a bite and hit the park, it fits like art on the canvas. Never scatters, but next stop, off to Nevada. Go from Reno down to Vegas where the losers never catch up. Whether cruising by casinos on Virginia or Flamingo, you can see the tourists losing their De Niro to zero. So we'll head to NorCal, getting there through Tahoe. Checking out the lake and stop at T's to get some tacos. We'll stop at Chico, go chill at the Bear Hole. Then it's down to Berkeley where them California Bears go. I love the Bay, shots to Oakland and to Frisco. And love the SoCal and Phoenix show, I won't forget you were the West. No matter where I'm posting, you can find me West Coasting. Flowing by the ocean, smoking downs a fresh potent. That's how it's going on the left of your map. We throwing dubs, we showing it's the West where we at. Yo, no matter where I'm posting, you can find me West Coasting. Flowing by the ocean, smoking downs a fresh potent. That's how it's going on the left of your map. We throwing dubs, we showing it's the West where we at. Yo, no matter where I'm posting, you can find me West Coasting. Flowing by the ocean, smoking downs a fresh potent. That's how it's going on the left of your map. We throwing dubs, we showing it's the West where we at. Yo, no matter where I'm posting, you can find me West Coasting. Flowing by the ocean, smoking downs a fresh potent. That's how it's going on the left of your map. We throwing dubs, we showing it's the West where we at. Yeah.
Oh man, had to start today's stream, first one back in a while with that joint, for a reason. Part of the reason I've been away, life's been hitting me, lots been going on, good and bad, a lot of heavy, but you saw on the cover that showed up that was produced by my homie E. Freezy, who unfortunately passed away last week, and just wanted to start that with a little tribute. We made a lot of music together, a lot over the years. I met him back in 2011, so good, 14 years. Sad to see. Dude was very positive, we spent a lot of time together, talked about a lot of things over the years. It was a time where we were extremely close friends, and day in and day out, we were on this music grind. We worked together at our day job. It was a lot, man. Dude showed up to help me move one time on the hottest day of the year. Shout out, bro. You'll be missed by a lot of people, and you made a great impact. He had a whole community. Look him up. You got the Freezy fam, all kind of stuff, man. But Eric Carlson, great homie, man, and I appreciate the time we had and the impact and the music we got to make, and just the friendship we got to share, bro. So rest in peace. I'm gonna continue this mission, continue being positive, continue, putting this music out that's authentic. And yeah, man, I got some tracks still that I cooked up that I haven't released on some of your beats, so I'm gonna clean those up and get those out too. So, the mission continues, my man. Love you, brother. So on that note, back to stream. It's been about a month, been a solid month, man. Go figure that out. A lot's happened. A lot has happened and been going down. And I know I cover random things on this sometimes. A lot of it's political, and sometimes I'll do sports, culture, music. That's kind of, my lanes, So I'm an MC. I rap about all these things. I rap about political stuff and the human condition a lot. I don't rap about sports really, but I make references, obviously. And culture's my thing. So we're going to hop right back into it, man. We're going to this whole thing with this potential suspension of habeas corpus and a lot of the moves the Trump administration is making and a lot of the stuff going on around the world right now is nuts. And we're going to hop into this little hearing right here with Kristi Noem talking about habeas corpus. So let's get into this because, man, I'm going to straight up say this chick is fucking remedial. Fucking remedial, yo. But here we go. Let's get into
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. Good morning, Madam Secretary. Secretary Noem, the White House Deputy Chief of Staff recently said that the Trump administration is actively looking at suspending habeas corpus. Last week, you were asked about this, and I want to clarify your position because it's obviously really important to get this right. So, Secretary Noem, what is habeas corpus?
Well, habeas corpus is a constitutional right that the president has to be able to remove people from this country and suspend their right to.
Let me stop you, ma'am. Habeas corpus, excuse me, that's incorrect.
President Lincoln used it.
Excuse me. Habeas corpus is the legal principle that requires that the government provide a public reason for detaining and imprisoning people. If not for that protection, the government could simply arrest people, including American citizens, and hold them indefinitely for no reason.
How do you not know this? You're the Secretary of Homeland Security. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. She doesn't know. And I'm going to be honest, man, you did say don't judge books by their covers. Obviously, we're reading the contents and seeing this. But if you look at the book's cover, it's got a very familiar construct to the facial features that we're starting to see. A lot of that plastic, puffed up lips. Everything's cosmetic and inauthentic. It's all plastic. What are we doing? It's not about, if you can't handle your own face, how can you handle politics? That's my question. If you can't accept your own face, how can you accept reality? You're rejecting reality patently, and you're showing the world. You're putting on display that you have day in, day out delusional rejection of reality because that ain't your face. And she don't know one of the basic tenets of the Constitution that goes into her job. It's fucking embarrassing. I'm sorry to be so crass already, but it's fucking embarrassing.
Habeas corpus is the foundational right that separates free societies like America from police states like North Korea. As a senator from the live free or die state, this matters a lot to me and my constituents and to all Americans. So, Secretary Noem, do you support the core protection that habeas corpus provides, that the government must provide a public reason in order to detain and imprison someone?
Yeah, I support habeas corpus. I also recognize that the President of the United States has the authority under the Constitution to decide if it should be suspended or not.
It has never
Let us be clear, though, that this president...
It has never been done without approval of Congress. Even Abraham Lincoln got retroactive approval from Congress. So I have been asking executive branch nominees a simple question over the past few months. If the president orders them to break the law, I've been asking, will you follow the law or follow the order? I want to ask you a more specific question here. If the president tries to suspend habeas corpus and a federal court reverses the president's order, will you comply with the court order and uphold habeas corpus, or will you follow the president's directive?
We are following all federal court orders and are complying with that, as is the president, and every decision that I make as well.
That is obviously not true for anybody who reads the news. There are federal court orders right now, including returning somebody who was deported mistakenly.
But
to be clear, This is about a
This just sounds like the conservative soccer mom down the street in the affluent part of town. You know what I'm saying? Just where you get your facts. Like they say, it's literally like he's just picking up people who have no qualifications, just putting them in because they support him. And a lot of people know that, but it's literally your dumbass neighbors, the equivalent, just running their fucking mouth. You know what I'm saying? Hopping on QAnon and all that shit. This is the type of chick that Kristi Noem is. She don't know what habeas corpus is, and she's telling this chick to check her facts about habeas corpus. Like, these people are void.
The fundamental legal right that ensures that we live in a free society instead of a police state that would have a sham legal system like Russia or North Korea. So I'm glad that you have now committed to following court orders. I'm glad you believe in the basic freedom for Americans if ordered to do so by a court. And again, I want just to make clear that it is critically important that even if the president tries to suspend the right of people to know why they've been detained or imprisoned, if a federal court reverses that order, that you will follow that order. And I hope all members of the administration will, because it's obviously critical that some of the people, for instance, who've been deported by mistake, who didn't get due process, be returned in compliance with court orders. So now, let's move on to another issue. International criminal organizations target Americans with sophisticated cyber crime, including elaborate scams that robbed Americans of billions of dollars, with seniors in the United States losing $5 billion to scammers in 2024 alone. As artificial
These robocalls and this information sharing and being able to sell people's contact information should be illegal. It's such an invasion of privacy, and it's so disgusting. It's one of the slimiest things about this country right now is getting like spam calls and scam calls. America just feels like a huge scam right now, and it's just no decency left. It sucks because it wasn't like this, but right now it's slimy on the moral side. There's no shame. There's no shame. It's just depraved greed, just pushing. It's wild.
Intelligence improves, so does the ability of criminals to deceive and defraud Americans. With this new technology, criminals can impersonate loved ones, develop advanced malware, or make more convincing phishing messages. How is DHS working to identify trends in illegal activity and ensure that new AI systems have safeguards in place to prevent their use in criminal activity?
Yes, we are working extensively through CISA, but in all of our agencies to make sure that we're going after these criminal, nefarious actors. I would say partnering with private industry is critically important so that we have the insight that we need to really understand the tactics that they use and the advancements in software. The AI ability that they have to adjust and to supersede some of our systems is incredible. And so investing in those systems is important, but also having the knowledge and bringing everybody to the table and breaking down the silos between our agencies and our intelligence agencies is important, so we all have the information that we need to get.
Well, and that gets me to one final.
Okay, she says breaking down the silos between the intelligence agencies, but you're doing a lot of your communication outside of official channels on things like the Signal chat. So if you're not willing to do it through official channels where it can be easily shared with officials within the official channels, this is an elaborate scheme. Not even elaborate. This is a dumb scheme to get around and circumvent these things that she's claiming that she wants to be a part of. And she also didn't say shit about what they're planning to do with any specifics. You got to pay attention to this, man. This is like one of those class presentations where she didn't read the book, but she read the fucking cliff notes, and now she's trying to fill in the gaps and act as if she did. And she didn't even read all the cliff notes. She read like the first page.
Point and question here, because Senator Peters began to ask about it. There's been recent reporting that indicates that the Chinese government installed remote access to Chinese-made power inverters in the U.S., raising concerns that the Chinese government could try to disable parts of our power grid. And you made a comment following up on Senator Peters' question about the importance of not only working with private industry on this issue, as you would also want to work on AI, but also on working with state and local governments on cybersecurity. And can you just talk to me a little bit about how DHS is partnering with state and local governments right now?
one
on
of the
cyber.
core critical missions of CISA
Yeah.
is to help those state and local governments harden their systems. We're extremely vulnerable by our weakest link. And so when you have a small state that doesn't have the resources it needs to invest in these security operations, then they're vulnerable to attacks and hacking attempts, and they can access our systems. If they have a contract or a system that interfaces with the federal system, it makes us vulnerable as well. So we are responsible for 10 of the 16 critical infrastructures under the Department of Homeland Security, and making sure that China can't come in and shut down our electrical grid, our water systems, things that people rely on every day for their day-to-day lives is very important. So that's why we need these kind of partnerships, is to make sure that we're secure all the way down to our smallest actor that participates.
Well,
I'm not worried about China crashing our grid. I'm worried about these idiots crashing our grid, our whole system. I'm not worried about any outside forces. It's going to happen from within. It's already happening from within. It's democracy been sabotaged long ago, and they're just continuing to accelerate in that process. It's real funny to see how much support people are giving the demise of their own country, voting against their own best interests to feel like their team won, to score some cool points. It's fucking stupid. I don't understand it, but I do, because, you know, it's just mass hysteria. It's how it works. Groupthink is dangerous, and this is why. Because we get into situations like this, because groupthink is right in the moment. Groupthink doesn't have, you know, foresight. Groupthink is very short-sighted. Groupthink doesn't sit back and contemplate and look at various angles. Groupthink is right now. Yeah. It's just an echo chamber. Nothing evolves. That's why it's so dangerous, because it gets us in shit like this where we have a whole pot of soup boiling. We ain't got no dishes to put it in. We ain't got no pot holders to get it off the stove. It's boiling. No, we ain't got shit besides a boiling pot. Like, why the fuck we gonna cook a meal? We ain't got nothing to. We ain't got a table to put it on. We ain't got bowls to put it in. We ain't got silverware to eat it with. We don't got nowhere to let it sit and cool off. We just got a stove with a boiling pot and no plan, yo. That's a bad way to operate in the kitchen. But yeah, Kristi Noem is an interesting character. I call her the Secretay of Cosplay because, you know, you've seen all those different pictures where she's dressed as this or that, where she was dressed as a border agent and pointing the gun at the actual border agent's head because she doesn't know how to handle a gun. Seen her dressed as a dentist. Seen her dressed as all kind of different military outfits and stuff. She's in this for the vanity of it, yo. And I mean, you look at somebody with that much cosmetic work. Maybe in this video coming to the show, she used to look like, but she did not look like that before. She used to look like a middle-aged woman. And now, she still looks like a middle-aged woman, but, you know, with that plastic mask on. I wonder if it has one of them, you know, it had a little line in the back, a little elastic line. I feel like they all got one of those on the back of the head. You can just walk up behind them, snap that bitch. All right, so this next video here is a little profile on Kristi Noem. I haven't seen this. It's 4 minutes, 11 seconds, you know, so it's a little shorty. But we're going to check it out, dive into the background, or whatever they dive into about Secretay of Cosplay here. Let's see what they got.
If you are using TikTok, you are helping China destroy America.
Kristi Noem, the God-fearing, gun-loving governor of South Dakota, wants you to get off TikTok right now. But stick around just this once to hear all about this government official who supports 2-year-olds owning rifles. Noem's rise to the top started in 2007 when she won a seat in South Dakota's House of Representatives. Her tenure in the legislature was marked by making it easier to purchase and own guns.
I may be a mom and a grandma, but I am the NRA. Little Miss Addie, who is almost...
This shit is so cringe. All these stupid America points people are trying to... There's like these little topics that, oh yeah, it makes you feel like America. Guns, and patriotism, and the flag, and troops, and all these key fucking words and these phrases and segments of our mentality, man. It's so ridiculous. It's like we're a bunch of Manchurian candidates. Guns. You can't. It's involuntary for a lot of these motherfuckers, man. I like guns too, but I don't want no fucking kids rocking guns. It's cool if you want to teach your kids, but you talking about two? It's stupid. It's fucking stupid. Little Miss Addie to the NRA. I hate how they appeal to each other on such false and fake pretenses, man.
Almost 2, and Branch, who's just a few months old, they have brought us so much joy. Now, Addie, who, you know, soon will need them, I want to reassure you, she already has a shotgun and she already has a rifle.
In 2010,
Your 2-year-old's gonna need a gun soon. If you believe that's true, let's break this down. Let's do a little thought experiment, if you will. Addie's 2. She's gonna need guns soon. Well, you gotta ask why. Why would Addie need guns soon? Well, because we live in a dangerous country where things can happen any time. There could be mass shootings. There's all kind of assault, crime, and this and that. Like, oh, how come we're not addressing that stuff? How come we're pulling money from all the programs that could help prevent these things? How come we're not looking at the relationship of poverty and crime? How come we're trying to make it a demographic-based thing? Because everybody knows crime goes up when opportunity goes down. How come we're not looking at that? How come we're just looking at arming, okay, a couple years soon? When soon? We're arming kids in the single digits with guns because they need protection from the outside world, of which you're presiding over as part of the government? That's a reflection on you. If your 2-year-old granddaughter, needs a gun in the country you preside over, that's a reflection on you and your administration. Not only that, your boy that you're serving under Trump, this is his second term. So he preceded Addie in a lot of ways and set the table. So help set the table. I ain't gonna blame it all on him. This whole shit's been a shit show for decades. But you gotta understand, you're participating in what causes your little Addie to potentially need a gun soon.
2010, Noem ran for
Still
South
got a new
Dakota's
mouse.
lone U.S. House seat. She won the Republican primary and
Look at
faced
this.
Democrat Stephanie Herseth Sandlin.
Okay, more mouse. But look at. Where did the rest of that upper lip come from that she got now? You know what I'm saying? I'm not just gonna go. I'm just tired of fake people. If you got a fake face, I'm automatically just gonna count you as fake. If you can't be real about your face, motherfucker, you're not real about anything.
Democrat Stephanie Herseth Sandlin in the general election. A big issue for Noem throughout the election was her driving record.
It includes 20 speeding tickets, 3 stop sign violations, 2 seatbelt violations, no driver's license, 6 court notices for failure to appear, and 2 arrest warrants.
After expressing remorse,
What the fuck? Why would we trust a motherfucker like that with anything? I'm not letting you borrow a movie if you got a record like that, bro, because I'm not getting it back. You are irresponsible as shit. You need to be... shit, we ain't got video stores no more, but you need the equivalent of a video store clerk as your job. That's about the most responsibility I would trust somebody like that with.
for her atrocious work behind the wheel and pledging improvement, Noem's constituents surprisingly sympathized with her longing to enforce laws that she struggled to follow. Noem won the election and then probably very dangerously drove to Washington, D.C.
How many of you have gotten into your vehicles before and have started driving down the road and your vehicle's just not working right? It drives kind of jerky and it's something stiff and it's not turning right, and you're just frustrated and you can't figure out what is wrong with your car. And then all of a sudden you realize that you've got your emergency brake on.
But she got to D.C.
She
in
just
one
told
piece
on
and
herself.
served 4 terms in the U.S. House, where
So
she tried
dumb.
to make life harder for the poor
Sorry,
folks
man,
in her
I'm mad.
state. Noem supported Paul Ryan's Medicaid plan, which would have resulted in a significant 55% reduction in coverage for program recipients. After her stint in the U.S.
Probably a
House,
good
she
thing.
ran for governor of South Dakota and won, making history as the first
It's interesting how much they don't want people to have access to fucking anything to make their lives healthy or prosperous. They don't want anybody to have anything aside from them and their contemporaries and benefactors. That's fucking America for you on the top end, yo.
first woman to hold that office in the state, and then she won re-election in 2022. Her time as governor has been marked by signing extreme anti-
And why we keep electing these motherfuckers, man? Like, how come people keep drinking the Kool-Aid? It ain't even sweet. They don't even put sugar in that Kool-Aid. Like, it's just gross, tart water with color in it now. Why we keep drinking this shit? There's real juice out there. There's water out there that's purified. There's spring water, all kind of stuff. Why we keep drinking this toxic ass fucking concoction they keep disseminating to everybody year after year, election after election? You don't have to choose one of these fucking presented sides. You can make your own choice. We can make our own change. You just want to get spoon fed. Whatever's handed to you, then cool. You get the results of that. Fuck that spoon. Where did you dip that spoon into to feed? I want to go to the table. I'm going to go to the source. Where you dipping that spoon at? Give me my own spoon. You know? We're so damn pacified and scared in this damn country. Nobody's doing shit. Just sitting back, being, come on, y'all. We can do better than this.
By abortion bills into law, pushing for weaker gun regulations, reportedly spending nearly $70,000 of taxpayer funds on expensive rugs and a sauna for the governor's mansion, and reportedly using the power of her office to give her daughter preferential treatment while she was applying for a real estate appraiser's license. One of the notable highlights from Noem's governorship so far has been an awareness campaign she...
But DEI is a problem, huh? But not nepotism? That's worse than DEI. By a million times, and you had nothing to say about it.
Titled Meth. We're on it.
Meth is not someone else's problem. It's everyone in South Dakota's problem. And we need everyone to get on it.
I'm on it.
Surprisingly, the...
I miss the days of like thoroughness and people being good at their jobs and really taking their time and going over stuff, not just, we're done, good enough, move on, let's go get some drinks now. That seems like that's meth. We're on it. We're on it. You're so dumb.
The slogan wasn't concocted by Cousin Greg and Tom Wambsgans, but by the governor of South Dakota. With Noem's support, South Dakota paid a whopping $449,000 to get the word out that they're all on meth. And if that wasn't bad enough, after the death of Henry Kissinger, a guy responsible for genocide, countless wars, and millions of deaths, Noem suggested that we honor his memory by quoting him to your kids while driving around.
And I hope that everyone's reaction to his passing is to go learn a little bit more about him that you didn't know before. Around your dinner table or when you're driving in the car with your kids, tell them a few Kissinger quotes.
Yes.
At your dinner table, fuck Kissinger. What the hell? She's trying so hard to get false sentiment points. Sentimentality. I don't know what the fucking word to say is right there, but she's trying so hard to be sentimental and just force it. It's so fake. It's all performative. Why do we want performative as a culture? We need to ask ourselves that. Why do we prefer performative? Why do we prefer the lie as opposed to the uncomfortable truth or the truth in general? Why do we, as a society, want to be lied to and abused? We got to figure that out. Because me personally, I'm not on the side that likes that shit or is willing to accept it. So why the fuck are so many of us willing to do it? We got to ask ourselves that. And then we got to take some action to fix it.
While you're speeding and seemingly blowing past stop signs, it's always a good idea to look at your children in the rearview mirror and recite to them famous Kissinger quotes like, "To me, women are no more than a pastime, a hobby. Nobody devotes too much time to a hobby. And the illegal we do immediately. The unconstitutional takes a little longer. And I refuse to believe that a little fourth-rate power like North Vietnam doesn't have a breaking point." Kids love hearing all that stuff. It's like Bluey, kind of.
This is the kind of people
Noem's future path remains uncertain, but there's speculation that she might be eyeing a role as Trump's running mate. In an interview with Newsmax, she expressed eagerness to join his ticket, stating she'd do so in a heartbeat.
Well, good thing that didn't happen. Dan Quayle gets to remain the biggest idiot to ever be a vice president as far as just obvious on the surface lack of IQ points. That motherfucker was ridiculously stupid. But yeah, speaking of ridiculously stupid, we've covered Kristi Noem. We're good. She's done for the day. Go ahead and get some more filler injections or something. We're moving on now to this N-word phenomena. Why do white people want to say the N-word so much? Why are they so supportive of people, calling little kids the N-word, right? Everybody by now heard of the Shiloh Hendrix situation. I just don't understand for the life of me why people are not looking at the nuances they should be, it seems like, in this. It's like we've lost morality bad. They're like, well, the kid, first off, a 5-year-old autistic kid, okay? Let's lead with that. He got into a bag that wasn't his, pulled something out. Like, from what I hear, he held it up like he thought it was cool. It didn't sound like he trying to steal. Maybe he was. A 5-year-old autistic kid. Kids do things. If he did that, the proper response would be to reprimand him and correct the behavior, not to insult him and use a racial slur, right? I've never seen the correct action on correcting the kid who's messing up and doing wrong as insulting them and calling them names. That doesn't do anything. It just builds resentment down the road and makes them start acting like that. You got to correct it. But hey, this is wrong. This is why you can't do that. Apologize, however you go about it. But yelling at them, calling them slurs, got this lady $1 million. But anyway, Pierce Brosnan, what the fuck did I say that for? I'm thinking of GoldenEye or something. I don't know. Maybe bust out the Nintendo 64. But Pierce Morgan had Steven Crowder and Mark Lamont Hill on to discuss this topic. And I'm not going to lie to you. Steven Crowder has been somebody who I've been wanting to see get this shit slapped down for a while. Oh, man. But to see that he popped up on this topic, I got to hear what he said. I got to hear. And I apologize in advance if
we are now dealing with the reaction and not with the action that has led to it. When you're a white person in this country and it's, hey, you don't know the lived experience, but I know yours. When it's, hey, if you move into an area, that's gentrification. But if you leave, it's white flight. It's, hey, sit down and shut up, and then it's silence is violence. The only way to win is not to play, and so people aren't even talking.
Here you are, to me, I say this respectfully, sounding like a paid-up member of the woke right.
Let's talk real accountability for actions and not false accountability for words.
It's not the smoking gun that we think. White people don't lie about using the N-word. They lie about not using the N-word.
And the prescription is more dialogue and doing so in good faith rather than this word whack-a-mole that we're playing in this country.
When I challenged self-professed racist podcaster Lily Gaddis to show her true white supremacist colours during an uncensored debate a few weeks ago, it's fair to say it all kicked off.
I want to live in a country where people are allowed to say what they want unashamedly, and you will
well, go
not
on then,
have
say
free
it. Say
you
the
will
M-
not have
Go on,
free speech.
go on. Say the M-word. Go on.
No.
Don't invite.
No. I don't want you to invite this woman to say a racially harmful term in front of me because I'm the only on here. So if she says it, I'm the victim of it.
Bro,
well, the fallout from that segment
bro.
went viral, provoking debate from the big names online, including one Steven Crowder, who called me out for being completely disingenuous for my challenge to racist Gaddis.
Big difference. So that challenge is not genuine. I do think that people shouldn't lose their livelihood or be condemned to racist for the rest of their life because they use a word in a context where there is no hate. That is not represented in the challenge of say it.
Maybe I gotta hear him say more of what he just said. I'm baffled already by my mouse's lack of performance.
Right now, just because you want to say it to black people. And then you have Mark Lamont Hill, who I've been on him with Reddit. He was always very nice to me. I mean, there's nothing more emasculating or self-emasculating than saying, someone will say a word and I will be the victim.
Well, I thought it was only fair and useful to have this out with Mr. Crowder, man to man. Of course he agreed, because...
See, I told you, you put too much on it and gave him ammo. They was gonna run with it, man. You gotta fight this shit with strength, bro. You gotta look these motherfuckers in the face. They out here trying to act heavy-handed. They ain't got heavy hands, man. You gotta come with some heavy hands. Let them know. All right, you got heavy hands? Cool, me too. Let's see what's up. Look him in the face, man.
Because he's a man. In a moment, we'll get Mark Lamont Hill's response to it as well. But first, Steven Crowder. All right, Steven Crowder.
Mark, we're gonna fight.
You're giving it to me. I think I'm the innocent pawn in the whole saga here. I'm just the one sitting here listening to a very, very unpleasant young white woman being deliberately racist, unashamedly racist, wants us to think she's a racist, admits to being racist. And when you talk about context of using the N-word, she is using it in that context. She had no problem with it being used by Shiloh Hendricks. She has no problem with saying it. And my only point in challenging her to say it on air was, well, go on then. If you're going to be that brazen, let's see if you're actually prepared to do it. And it turned out she wasn't. Over to you.
Well, first off, thank you for having me, Pierce. I do appreciate it. And I want to be really clear about one thing. At no point in this conversation am I implying, insinuating in any way that you are racist, because I know how much of a powder keg this can be. Two white people, in our case, especially with you, two very white.
You know why it's a powder keg, bro? Because of history. Your ancestors did some shit that led to all of this, bro. If you can't admit to that, then you're only gonna feed the problem. It's only gonna make that powder keg more explosive. You want to be disingenuous and play these games like the shit that happened before all this didn't happen that led to this? Like, bro, we're up the building. We're not on the ground level. This ain't the foundation, bro. We're many, many stories up.
People discussing this topic. Look, the point that I was making, and I believe I said low down dirty trick. I don't think I just said disingenuous. And it's not about you with that specific person. It's about say the N-word. Say the N-word. And we've seen this used quite a bit. And the issue that I have here is I don't want to live in a society. Now, I'm not super familiar with this lady, okay? If you say she's a racist, I'll take your word for it.
Well, she admitted it. She admitted it.
Okay. But we live in a society where right now the racism issue and words are being thrown down as landmines as someone is walking in reverse. And you can look at, for example, I think we're all adults, context and the level of affront, which is what I was addressing there with Dr. Mark Lamont Hill, who's been very much a gentleman with me. And I'll determine the level of authenticity as to that offense. I think we're adults and we can have context. I don't think that there are boogeyman words. I think context matters more. I think that we as a society right now are canceling livelihoods over someone saying a word and permitting
That word canceled lives, bruh. You're about livelihoods getting canceled. That word, when it was said to a lot of people, what followed was actions that led to their death. That word has been used as a predecessor of death. It's a harbinger, bro. That word is a fucking harbinger for a lot of people. What the fuck would you want to say a word like that for? I don't even say that shit. And no one would bat an eye if I was dropping them. Oh, what's up? I just choose not to because I know the history of that word. Not to say I condemn black people who use the word. It's their right because they're the ones who've been the victims of it and their ancestors. If they want to take the steam out of it and the power out of it by co-opting it for themselves, cool. I'm not mad at it. I just choose not to use it as a personal choice. And if I, as a black person, choose not to use that and don't want to, have no desire to, why would white people have any reason at all to use this word or have a desire to say it other than having racist motivations? You gotta riddle me that one.
Reprehensible behavior in the form of crime, in the form of the protests that we have seen in the last recent years. And I think I'd like a society where we are hard on actions and forgiving on words, and certainly in the context of adulthood, able to understand it.
Okay, so look, a large part of what you've just said, I completely agree with. I do think language has been weaponized. I hate cancel culture. I think it's the epitome of woke bullshit, etc., etc. But rather like with free speech itself, when people say that free speech is unlimited, it's actually not unlimited. I mean, you could say whatever you want right now. It doesn't mean you won't be held accountable by others for what you say. So everything has consequence, right? I would never restrict your ability to say what the hell you like. That's fine. But there are limitations. The First Amendment in the United States Constitution is one of the most protective shields to free speech anywhere in the world. And yet it has a number, as you know, of exclusions of things that are not covered by the First Amendment. So I think this So this whole kind of, when people say, well, anything goes, well, it actually doesn't anything go.
Well, hold on a second, like what? Like what exclusions? Because I think we need to define it. Like what exclusions? Are you going to do the fire in a crowded theater thing?
No, I'm going to do, if you look up the First Amendment and look at the exclusions, you know, pedophilia, pornography, things like that are not covered by First Amendment protection rights.
That's not speech. That's not speech. That's where you're conflating freedom of speech and freedom of expression, which many Democrats have done in the name of modern art.
I'm talking about exclusions to the First Amendment protection.
We were just talking about freedom of speech. Pedophilia has nothing to do with speech.
People don't talk about it?
Is not protected by the First Amendment. Did you know that?
Well, actually, your ability to criticize someone is. The ability to lie about someone knowingly to cause damage is not. Again, this is an action. So it's not about speech that offends people. And so I think we're largely on the same page.
Hang on. That's an interesting point. Hang on, Stephen. Because if you lie, you're still exercising your right to free speech. But if you deliberately, willfully lie about somebody and cause them harm and damage that can be established in a court of law, and you are found guilty of defamation, you can't use the First Amendment as protection. We agree on that, right?
Of course, I understand it. That's not speech. That's not the point of the speech, right? For example, if I say, and I'm not saying this, let's say Kanye West's recent single, right? That's a problem. It's offensive. I think we would both agree that it's borderline, at least anti-Semitic. Would we agree on that?
Sorry, just say it again. I can be sure what you're saying.
Kanye West's recent song, right? His recent banger. We both agree it's at least on the line of anti-Semitic, right?
Yeah, I don't
think that anyone out there.
Yeah, listen, I think that a guy who has spent the last year is bestowing the virtues of Adolf Hitler and the Nazis, who's been selling swastika. But I think it's an important clarification.
Okay,
because
I agree with you.
I'll tell you why, because he would argue that the actual words of the record are not anti-Semitic, right? And it's hard. But the fact he's got millions of people running around chanting Heil Hitler, clearly, to me, is an extreme form of anti-Semitism by a man who knows what he's doing.
It's anti-humanitarian.
I agree with you, okay? I just wanted a yes or no because I wanted to
but it's
complicated.
It's complicated simply
not
because...
that complicated. It is
it's complicated
right?
because the actual lyrics, he would argue, are not anti-Semitic. He's trying to be clever, and I don't think we should give him the pass.
Okay, I agree. I'm trying to create a really, really blatant, obvious analogy here to make a point. So we both agree that it's anti-Semitic. I think it's bad. I think saying Hail Hitler is bad. Okay. That is not, however, a violation in any way. Your First Amendment protects it. Now, saying I would like to, I am calling you to enact what Hitler has enacted, that's a call to action. Defamation requires damages. And I want to get to this because this does matter. Okay? When we're talking about this new song, and as a comedian and as a linguist, I'm going to say the word here so that everybody knows, and that's what you're going to clip.
You are not
We're
funny,
looking at
dog.
words that are offensive, a song that is offensive, but one is a boogeyman word. We have one noun, a verb, and a noun. Okay, we have a noun by itself, contextually. That's bad. Shouldn't say it, but it's not imbued with any power outside of historical context. The last noun, Hitler, is imbued with the power of the verb that precedes it, hail, to praise, to venerate. That'll get clipped, even though I'm condemning the song as anti-Semitic, and not one person here who would be the victim of a more severe call to action is going to say it's anti-Semitic. I think we're in a silly point in this country when we're pulling this clip to condemn the anti-Semitism here at the studio, and people going, hey, can I get a second cut of that N-word, Hail Hitler? That's the point. It's not genuine.
Would you have used the N-word in the way that you just did if you had a black guest with you?
Like Dr. Hill? Sure.
You would?
Sure. And here's the challenge again.
It's not a challenge.
This is the point, right?
No,
We're
I
trying
think you're
to use
missing.
this as a tool. It's
I
great
think you
for
actually.
broadcast,
I think
but
you.
bad
I think.
for the
Hang on, Stephen. I think both
for the country.
I think both you and Mark Lamont Hill missed the point of what I was doing there. There was no preconceived idea of mine to do that. I just felt that she was being very cowardly. I felt she was saying, of course I would say it, but I very much doubted she would actually say it. In other words, I thought a lot of it was performative racism. She's an unashamed racist, openly admitted it to, but I didn't think she would actually go through and say it in the way she claimed she would say it.
But do you agree?
Because I thought
she
was a sniveling little coward. So it was really calling out her cowardice was what I was trying to do.
Sure.
But I accepted when Mark Lamont Hill said, do not do that, I thought about it very quickly and thought he's right. He's right. It looks too performative,
but
and he objected.
Do you agree with the point that I'm making, Pierce? Do you understand the point? Again, as a linguist, when you look at that, context matters. And if someone is going to say, or try to, by the way, attribute any hatred or malice in someone's, it is incumbent upon them to prove it. In your instance, I understand it. In this one here.
So what about, all right, listen. So what about Shiloh Hendricks, who is caught on camera repeatedly using the N-word, says it to a 5-year-old kid, right? And is now getting hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe even millions now, I haven't checked, in charity donations backing her. A, do you support what she did on that bit of footage? Tax day has passed, but for millions of Americans, that's where the trouble begins.
I don't think that someone should scream the N-word at a child any more than I think a grown adult should call a child a piece of shit. Now, I do think that if you're talking about the money raised, we are now dealing with the reaction and not with the action that has led to it. I was raised, and I want to be clear about this, and I know I'll be told that I don't know anything about the black experience, so I'm not saying from you, but people will watch this and say, you couldn't possibly know. In a post-racial America, by the way, largely Canada, the most recognizable faces on earth, Michael Jordan, Mike Tyson, Michael Jackson, I'll get, okay, that one's a half one. The point is, our greatest export was culture in America, celebrated our black celebrities. I didn't think about watching Fresh Prince or Urkel with my close black friends. But today, when you look at this, this is a reaction to white people, and this is important. And if you want to know what the reaction is, look at Gen Z voting males, in particular, Hispanic males, who we've been told, including by Dr. Hill, should be natural.
Bro, they're all regretting. You should see the new polls, my man. It's like something like already a 14% drop in that demographic, in the young demographic of, 18 to 24, I want to say is what it was. It was a 14% drop. And you're seeing Hispanics all over the country regretting their vote. So I don't know if you want to cite this.
Natural allies of the black community. When you're a white person in this country and it's, hey, you don't know the lived experience, but I know yours. When it's, hey, if you move into an area, that's gentrification. But if you leave, it's white flight. It's, hey, sit down and shut up, and then it's silence is violence. It's, hey, you can't use empirical in making an argument about neighborhoods regarding crime data, but you also can't say you have a black friend, which, by the way, is a completely legitimate defense against racism. The only way to win is not to play, and so people aren't even talking. And I want to make one last point.
No, bro. Sometimes I know racist people who would say things like, oh, you're one of the good ones to people. That's still racist as fuck, bro. Just because you got a friend of a certain group don't mean you respect or care for that group. Come on, man. Don't be ridiculous. We see how you treat your wife, bro. you probably do not like most women, but do you mean you hate all humanity? I don't know. But we see it, bro, so...
I do a segment on this show called Black and White and the Gray Issues, where I will, as Dr. Hill does, go into barbershops, go into black neighborhoods, and discuss these issues with them. And not once has anyone accused me of a whiff of racism. What white people are afraid of in this country, and the reason they're not having a dialogue, is the game of telephone and someone in the media telling a community that they should be experiencing an affront. And that leads to more racial division. It doesn't end anywhere good.
Okay, but let me respond to that.
It's not accountability. It's false outrage.
If you don't mind me saying, you're being slightly distracting from the actual story, which to me should be an open and shut case. Whether you're on the left or the right, it should not be difficult to watch footage of a white woman repeatedly using the N-word at an adult black male and then using it at a 5-year-old black child. Obviously, any human being, it seems to me, with any understanding of the history of the United States of America should be able to say that is completely unacceptable and not go into some long speech about this, this, and this. It just is wrong.
Didn't I say you shouldn't say it?
Right. So I think we have to agree certain parameters.
Shouldn't say it.
So
let's not ask how we got here.
So certain parameters. So we just say that is completely wrong, right? And then we move on to, is it right that she's now had hundreds of thousands of dollars in donations to support her? I say again, that is completely ridiculous and outrageous, and it's being whipped up by a fake kind of moral equivalence. Well, you know what? People are racist about white people, so of course we should support her. No, just take a line in the sand and say, if you use the N-word against black people, you are being racist. If you're white, you know you're being racist, you shouldn't do it, and you should face consequences when you do it. And your first reaction, if you're somebody else involved who's white looking at that story, shouldn't be, here's some of my money to help you, you poor victim. She wasn't the victim. The victim was the 5-year-old black child that she racially abused, and the adult black person she racially abused. We should all be able to say, yes, that is what happened there. There's no equivalence, there's no ambiguity, there's no, you know what, maybe this story, no, let's just have a clear line in the sand and say, that is wrong, that is racism. End. Surely?
No.
Oh my God.
Now, do you want to know which part I disagree with?
Yes.
How... I'm struggling to understand the mentality of a lot of Americans. Really struggling to understand the mentality. He said no.
Certainly not the part that I already agreed with. Shouldn't yell the N-word at a black person 5 years old or 50 years old. But the reason for the GoFundMe amount, you can simply dismiss it and say those people are racist. Or I am telling you that you are seeing a statistical reality emerge where, by and large, the rejection of countries like where you and I are from, the policing of speech and the out of context use of boogeymen words to try and destroy people's livelihoods, where white people are going, yeah. The conversation, though, isn't that you shouldn't do that. We all know that. The conversation is, I can lose my job if I sing along to my favorite hip hop album, whether Enter the Wu-Tang or Kanye's College Dropout.
No one's lost their job for that. I'm not aware if they have. It's not for rapping along the lyrics, which is pretty, you still know what you're saying. But it's for stuff like this. It's for statements that are directed at humans, bro. I'm so tired of people deflecting and making these false fucking equivalencies. It's not, she wasn't rapping the rap lyrics. That's not what people have been getting these consequences for at all, my man.
That's the conversation, and you have people who are tired of it being used as a cudgel.
You know what you're sounding like, Stephen? You know what you're sounding like? You're sounding like the woke right, a phenomenon I didn't even know existed, but then I've been reading and writing about it. You've been labeled the woke right, and here you are, to me, I say this respectfully, sounding like a paid-up member of the woke right, because what you're trying to do is say there is some equivalence. I remember a sonority girl who had been singing along to a Kanye record, which included the N-word, and she was caught on camera at a party singing the chorus, which was the N-word, and she sang it, and she then got into all sorts of trouble and got suspended and so on and so on. To me, there is absolutely, you talk about context, there is no similarity between what happened there, which was ridiculous, and what happened in that playground with that woman deliberately and malevolently racially abusing black people. There's no similarity there. They are completely different things and should be treated completely differently. I think anyone, white or black, should look at the white girl at college who is caught on camera singing a chorus to a #1 hit record, which happens to include the N-word. She should not be punished for that. She might have somebody explain to her, you know what, blah, blah, blah. Okay? But there's no equivalence between that and what happened in that playground. Because you talk about context. The context of the one in the playground was to be deliberately racist.
Well, the context of the playground was that her child was having another child steal from her child's bag, and she was upset. And again, it still doesn't make it right, but let's also provide some context. The point that I was addressing was you labeling everyone who gave to the Give, Send, Go. By the way, I've also never been labeled woke right. That's very, very silly. $782,000, I believe, give or take. Maybe it's $882,000. But hold on a second. You say that every single person who is giving to that is the equivalent of the person yelling the N-word at a 5-year-old.
I didn't say that.
We say the same thing.
No, I didn't say that.
Hold on.
No, I didn't say that.
That's the interruption
I
buzzer.
said
Hold
they're
on, let me
wrong
finish
to
my
do
point.
it.
I'll be done in 20 seconds. 20 seconds. Would we also say then that the people giving to Anthony, Carmelo Anthony, support the wanton stabbing of white kids who die in their twin brothers' arms? What I'm saying is there is a reaction to people.
Why can they not deal with reality? This is like the Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark thing that happened the other day, where they're so mad about the foul, and no one wants to talk about Angel just shoving the girl in the back right before. The reason she got fouled because there was nobody there. She had an open lane. The lane was open because she shoved the chick out of the way, grabbed the rebound. Caitlin smacked the ball and gave her a hard foul to send her to the line. And she got pissed at her for doing this. Like, you can't accost people and get mad at the response. This shit is crazy to me, man. It's literally crazy. They don't want to talk about the nuance of the situation. They don't want to talk about the actualities of any of these situations.
Being told to sit down and shut up and
talk about the wanton stabbing. Eyewitness accounts say that they put their hands on him. Both brothers put their hands on him, according to witnesses that I've heard, and people that say a dad that says he was there because his daughters were on the track team under that tent. He was under that tent too. Said both of them boys, the Metcalf boys, walked up to Carmelo, put hands on him, and were starting to get physical with him. And they were 220 pounds apiece, 440 pounds a guy, and he's 130 pounds. That's not wanton stabbing. He ain't just walking around. Nah. He even told them, touch me and see what happens. And they decided to see what happens. Y'all always want to co-opt the phrase that we started to fuck around and find out. He fucked around and found out. It's from what I'm hearing from the eyewitness sources. So, bruh, it's not wanton. The way you frame shit, even that shit's racist, bro. Because you know what the fuck you're doing. Stop with this fake shit. Everybody, stop with the fake shit. Either deal with reality or shut the fuck up.
And silence is violence. And words being used to end their livelihoods. And that is the conversation that is taking place in this country. And most people are refusing to have it. Of course, you shouldn't yell the N-word at a 5-year-old. You got it. But there's no segment if that's where we end it. Let's discuss why you have tens of thousands of people giving money for something they never would have donated to a mere 10, 15 years ago. Don't we think it would have been better
by the
before
current
we got
climate.
to the point of the Holocaust for someone to say, hey, wait a second. How did we end up here believing that only Jews carry these communicable diseases? How did we end up here, all of us accepting these negative stereotypes? Hey, wait, how did we end up here?
You ever heard of eugenics, bro? You ever heard about, because of head size, black people ain't as intelligent, all this pseudoscience? How did we get here? Who do you think started all of that shit, dog? Racist motherfuckers, usually of European descent, almost exclusively. Do you want to look at, you talk about context, bro? A lot of context is, you gotta go pretty far back to truly contextualize. Are you gonna do it? Doesn't seem like it, man.
These groups of people. I think the how you've gotten there matters, and I think the prescription for it is important, and that's what I'm trying to focus on. The prescription
focus on how we
is
truly
more
got there,
dialogue,
dog.
and doing so in good faith, rather than this word whack-a-mole that we're playing in this country.
Dry skin, deeper wrinkles, and crepiness are just a few of the visible signs of aging.
You know, T. Hanley and all that. I ain't getting paid to say that, but we take care of the skin. I don't need your shit. Hold on. Scoop. I guess they're getting a little play over here. Any minute now.
Okay. Mark Lamont Hill, welcome back to Uncensored.
Mark looked pissed.
I saw your reaction in another podcast I think you did, where you were
Stephen can't even look at the camera. You see that? Hold on. You see how he looked away?
I was trying to do there. And just to reiterate to you.
Run that back. Okay, let's look at this. Look at Mark. Look at Mark. Look at Steven. This one, you know you full of shit. This is like you was full of shit talking to mom, thinking you was like, Daddy just came the fuck home. I don't know what he finna say, but the look on his face, the look on his face is like that. He's like, well, here we go. I hope the visual of this is how it plays out.
In another podcast I think you did, where you were pretty aggrieved at what you thought I was trying to do there. And just to reiterate to you, in the moment, I was trying to expose her cowardice. And I listened to what your impassioned immediate response to my challenge, and I immediately realized this would not be a smart thing to do. So it certainly wasn't premeditated. It certainly wasn't from anything other than a place of, you are an unashamed racist who says you say this word all the time, including to black people. I bet you don't. And he'll do the same as to be performative. Let's see if I'm right. And, you know, with hindsight, it was a little ill-advised, but it wasn't me trying to be theatrical or get a viral moment, just to reassure you, because you and I go back a long way. I wouldn't want to deliberately put you in that position. And you very quickly responded and made me immediately realize the peril of potentially doing what I was trying to do. But in relation to what Stephen Crowder says, now look, a lot of what Stephen says, I agree with. I do think we've got to a weird place in society where words and language have been ridiculously over-weaponized and used to cancel people and ruin their lives and so on. I agree with that. But I also think there are certain things and words and phrases,
bro, you don't need to use.
which have been accepted by society for quite some time now.
People in Israel arguing for the right to rape prisoners, and you got white people in America arguing for the right to use racial slurs against other races. What the fuck is going on for real?
Be completely unacceptable. And one of them is the N-word, particularly when it's used against black people by white people, right? And this woman, the way this Lily Gaddis sort of proudly giggled her way, talking about how proud she is to say it and so on, I found completely repellent and disgusting. But in terms of what Stephen said about, you know, this is heading to a dangerous area if you weaponize words generally, is he right?
The N-word is a weapon. Historically.
In the abstract, sure. I mean, I think if you weaponize a bunch of words and people don't have the safe space to say what they want or say what they believe, it could be a very dangerous space, because what I find to be offensive, you may not. What I find to be extreme, you may find to be moderate. What I may see as outside the proverbial Overton window, you may not. And so you never want to get into a place, to use Stephen's language, where we're just doing the linguistic whack-a-mole. I agree with that wholeheartedly. But I don't think that's what's at issue here. I think there are a few things. You all said a bunch of interesting things that I want to get at. The first thing is, I guess, to Stephen's initial point about my self-emasculation. At the thought, I wasn't melting down, as some on the right have said, because I was afraid that this boogeyman N-word was going to pop out of her mouth and I was going to fall away. That wasn't the point at all. I think you actually characterized it properly, Piers. I was frustrated not at the looming threat of the N-word coming out of her mouth. It was at the spectacle that I felt like in that moment was being created that was wholly unnecessary. And again, I don't think you were doing it intentionally at my expense, but we're all hosts. There's a moment where you got somebody on the ropes, and we know it's a good moment. We know it's a big moment. And getting a white person to say the N-word, it's like a Few Good Men. It's like, did you order, it's a Jack Nicholson moment, right? If you can get them to do that, that's a big moment. And I get that. I guess my point at the time was, it's not the smoking gun that we think. White people don't lie about using the N-word. They lie about not using the N-word. If she already said, I use the N-word in private. So no one pretends to use the N-word when they don't. So I actually didn't think that we needed that confession out of her. For me, as far as the other point here, I don't accept Stephen's analysis here of the donations to the campaign. Even if he is right that people were donating out of some political reaction to our hypersensitivity as a society, that's the wrong person to do it to. Do it to the person that's getting doxxed because they made a mistake 10 years ago. Do it to...
Exactly. You're being really stupid about how you're trying to prove your point, and all you're doing is proving how racist this country is instead. It's dumb.
The person who rapped the N-word, on Gold Digger, and suddenly it has lost their ability to go to college. There's all kinds of people who we might say, even if we don't agree fully on the context, who we could say, hey, is a better example of the cause. But as you said, Piers, this is somebody who was using the word in the exact context that we're afraid of, or not afraid of, in the exact context that we're frustrated about, in the exact context that we think it's being used in. And so to dump money, almost $800,000 into her coffers, is ultimately...
And when she used it against a kid, it ain't even like she just said it to her. She said it to a kid. This is the one y'all choose to put on the throne and the pedestal and make rich. This is the one out of all the people you claim you're frustrated about. This is your fucking one, huh?
Rewards her for using that language. Imagine if an arsonist were to set a building on fire, and all three of us agreed that arson should not get the death penalty. I think we probably all agree on that. But if we were to then take $1 million and dump it in their GoFundMe to fund the arsonist's legal defense, and now they get off, is that the right way to do it? Is that the right call? There might be other ways to do it than to fund the person who's done something.
Mr. Crowder has very politely raised his right hand to speak, which I think is a rare example of good manners on this program. So, Stephen, your response.
Well, it's the Canadian. I mean, actually, Dr. Hill and I have go a while back on Fox News, and like I said, he's always been a gentleman, and I do accept his. I saw him on a podcast later explaining that he didn't know who the guest was going to be. This is after the fact. And I have a much greater understanding now. I also get it. I will say, great, now do stabbing. And I think I know what the answer is going to be. Can we both, if we want to find common ground here, agree that, yeah, we really find ourselves at a weird point in this country when a bunch of people are giving to a lady who yells the N-word at a 5-year-old, and a bunch of people are giving to someone who is famous for no other reason than allegedly stabbing an innocent person? I know that we'll say it's because innocent until proven guilty, but this is the information that we have on both of these scenarios at this point in time. And what I'm discussing is the prescription moving forward. And one final thing. Here's the point that I was making that you didn't show in that clip too, was saying that it's racist for someone to say they would prefer to live in a predominantly white neighborhood, or they would prefer to live in their neighborhood, which is not black, I believe is what they said. And I don't believe it was necessarily her. I believe there was a man on the panel who said that, but you do. And I'm not going to attribute racism in your heart because only 4% of the population where you're placed in Los Angeles is black. I think we need to stop attributing and imbuing hatred, and I think we need to stop empowering them. But we do find ourselves at a point in this country where neither of these give, send, goes would have blown up if it existed 10 years ago. Why? How'd we get here?
I actually, well, Mark, I'll get you to respond. I have to say, in a way, completely different scenario, but how we got here, I think the same blame can be attached to how we got here to what is going on with the reaction to Joe Biden's health news. I made a point last night on X when that story broke. I was staggered by the instantaneous mockery, abuse, glee, ecstasy, desire for him to die that poured out in response to my tweet revealing this news about him having aggressive advanced stage 4 prostate cancer metastasizing to his bones, which is clearly an incredibly serious situation for a man of his age. And I just made the point, the guy's served his country for 50 years, whatever you think of it, this is the moment just to wish him well, isn't it? The answer was no, and has carried on being no for the next 24 hours in the most stunningly abusive, horrific, ghastly manner, totally inhumane to me. And I think the common theme, Stephen, of the two things is social media. Social media has, I think, inflamed social and racial tensions to a point where people just don't think the normal rules of society apply. They can be as disgusting and inhumane and racist and sexist and whatever they want to be as they like, with no accountability in almost every case. And we've become almost neutralized to that kind of thing. And part of the problem is that when people like you and me, and Mark, I'm sure, launch staunch defenses of the right to free speech, the wrong ears take it as the right to be openly racist and all these other things with no accountability. They misunderstand what free speech actually entails. It doesn't mean you're never going to be held accountable for what you say. When Shiloh Hendrick...
The easiest example I can think of, go back to the playground. When somebody says something about somebody's mom in a serious fashion, not when you were playing the dozens and just ragging on each other, but they seriously said something about somebody's mom. Let it be true at that. They're fighting. That was the consequence for you saying what you said. You had the right to say it, but that person took exception. Now you got punched in your mouth for crossing the line. And they might face consequences for punching you in the mouth. And that was their freedom of choice of reaction. You have freedom of speech, and whoever hears your speech has freedom of reaction. And I'm not saying they're going to choose the right thing. I'm saying they have freedom to choose. And I don't understand if we everybody in here has gotten mad at an insult or somebody crossing the line and saying some wild shit to them. So they don't understand like people are so disingenuous about this when it comes to slurs that have historically led to the oppression of millions of people, the deaths of millions of people, the enslavement of millions of people. Come on, y'all.
Said that she said the N-word, whatever, this was her right to free speech. Yeah, but everybody else has a right to hold you accountable for it. And it's the second part of that equation, which is, I think, important. So, Stephen, your response to my thesis.
Yeah. Yes, I disagree. I think social media is a part of it, but I also don't think that we're dealing with an accountability culture as far as the country. I think we're dealing with a false accountability culture as far as the media and those in the establishment. You have myself, for example, who was demonetized, throttled on YouTube for simply using the term lispy queer, someone who referred to themselves as a lispy queer. It was a quote. Then moved over to Rumble, and after the exodus, Diageo, in charge of 80% of the world's advertising, told Rumble that it wasn't enough to demonetize myself, but that they wouldn't spend $1 of advertising on the entire platform, an alternative platform to YouTube, unless I was removed. You've had entire governments try and remove platforms for freedom of speech. This is not the accountability that people in the streets are calling for. What is being called for example, from people in the media, is a lie. They would rather hear a lie than the truth. And so you have people checking out. For example, someone's afraid to say, could be my black neighbors, but it's anecdotal. I'm not supposed to say the black friend thing. Move to the same neighborhood I have because it's safer and there's a stronger sense of community. But if you want me to lie to you and say, I picked that neighborhood and it just so happens to be more mixed or more white, but my neighbor's a former Dallas Cowboy, you can demand a lie, but the media is demanding the lie, not the American people. I am in no...
See, you just said it, bro. Like, you gotta be a Dallas Cowboy damn near to live in them there. Son of a bitch. They just don't get
way concerned. Going down to a black neighborhood because I do it, to the tune of hours, hundreds of hours of footage, and hundreds of millions of views discussing these issues. The challenge I run into is when someone else, a third party, wants to play a game of telephone and tell them that it's racist. You can go and watch. I had not one, not two, but 10 people in this installment say, yeah, I think all lives matter. I think anyone who says that's white supremacy is out of their mind. They don't speak for us, the black community. I'd never know that unless I had that conversation with them. Very few people are doing it. You're demanding a lie of people.
Also understand
okay, Mark,
the
your
root
response.
of countering it, man. You know.
Lots of things again. First, I think Stephen is, and I don't assign to you any ill intent, but you're comparing apples and oranges here when we talk about the Carmelo Anthony and the racist woman, I can't think of her name, video.
Lily Gaddis.
I think, as you pointed out all day,
Hendricks,
no, not Lily Gaddis, but
you're talking about Shiloh Hendricks,
yeah. Shiloh Hendricks, yes. When you talk about context, I think we have to look at context in the context even of these GoFundMes, right? The people who are funding Carmelo Anthony, you can tell this from the comments, this isn't my guess, they're not saying good job. They're saying we don't believe that you're guilty. We don't believe that you've gotten a fair legal process, and so we're sending money to make sure that you get a proper legal defense because we don't believe that you are guilty of this crime. That is what they're saying. Now, you and I may look at the evidence and come to the same conclusion or a different conclusion, but they're not attempting to reward the behavior. They're attempting to challenge a system that they feel like is misrepresenting the behavior. In the case of the N-word and this woman, right, Charlotte, what's happening is quite different. They're not saying, hey, we feel like she's taken such a loss from her free exercise of free speech that we want to reimburse her for that. That would be a different argument. I still wouldn't want to do it, but that would at least be logically and morally consistent. When you look in the comments and when you talk to people who are funding that campaign, they are literally shouting the N-word. They are literally echoing the racial epithet, and that is different. That's why I say if this is really going to be a First Amendment cause, again, and not the lie that you're talking about, then let's invest in actual First Amendment causes and not this. And to your second point, I agree, and then I got you wholeheartedly. I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with making decisions about where you want to live. But there's a huge difference between saying, I want to live in a statistically safe neighborhood, or I want to live in a historically safe neighborhood, and I don't want to live around black people under any circumstances. And again, the latter is what came out in our conversation on the show the last time. And we're melding those two things as if they are the same and then acting as if there's just no room for a white person, or a black person for that matter, to exercise any radical honesty about where they want to live. I ain't met a person yet that doesn't want to live in a safe neighborhood. I want to live in a safe neighborhood. I also want to live around black people. People can make their own choices, but let's not pretend they're the same thing.
Okay, we've got to end it there. Yeah. I would say, in answer to your question, Stephen, I would say in both the GoFundMe cases, I think it's wrong. I think the
stabbing is worse than a word.
I think the intentions on both sides are actually
he just ignored the whole self-defense and the fact
not doing
he ignored all of that.
He
didn't say anything about any of it.
They're doing it because they're taking
like
a side based on skin color in both those stories. I think. So I think
murder is worse than yelling.
Yeah, listen.
He's claiming self-defense.
Allegedly stabbing someone to death is worse than
getting railroaded is a worse outcome than getting held accountable for using the N-word.
Yeah, but it's all about the framing.
No,
but Stephen's point is that one is worse than the other.
I don't think we can end this on this, Pierce. I can take 30 seconds here. If we're talking about accountability, like I said, there's false accountability.
So
are you against catch and release?
That framing suggests that the money is going for the behavior.
Are you against the discount under $1,000 or less where a shopkeeper has to close down because of the name of systemic restorative justice? Are you against cash and release? Are you against cash bail? Are you against the idea that people can shoplift and not be held accountable for their actions? Let's talk real accountability for actions and not false accountability for words. I believe that stabbing someone is worse than saying a word. Both are bad. Me, Mr. Traditional.
You know what?
Okay. Let me respond to that. Let me respond to that.
Quickly.
Because again, that is a disingenuous framing. No one is arguing that stabbing someone is better than using the word. My point is our response as a community to the stabbing is not to say, great job. Our response is, this was awful, but let's find out what really happened. No one is saying on the other side of this issue that N-word thing is awful, but let's hold this woman accountable, but let's not go too far. And if they are, I'm okay with that. But it's not apples and oranges. No one is saying what that woman did is worse than that kid getting stabbed. They're saying that the story of the stabbing hasn't been told well or properly, and we want justice for everybody. And to answer your cash bail, yes, I'm against cash bail. But I don't believe I don't believe that that's the only way to hold people accountable. You can hold people accountable without cash bail.
I've got to leave it there, not least, Mark, because I'm worried about what you're doing to your ear at the moment. There's clearly an issue. a malfunction.
My microphone fell out.
And there's something, it looks like you're basically gouging your own ear out in horror of what's happening on screen.
Oh, come
which
on.
I know is not what you're doing, but it's a worrying optic for the viewers. Guys, I really enjoyed that debate. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Interesting. That's so crazy, though. And it ain't just Crowder. I'm not going to say it's just him. I see this happen in real life where it's just disingenuous arguments where people are going to willingly and voluntarily leave out details that would muddy up their argument. They're going to do everything they can to try to look like their side's clean, and they're going to blatantly leave out things like it's a claim of self-defense, man. He didn't even mention that one time. He mentioned the word stabbing, I don't know how many times, but he never even said that the case had to do with self-defense. That's the claim. I'm not saying that's what it was or what it wasn't. I'm saying what I heard eyewitnesses say and what the case is about. And he didn't even say what the case is about. That's how disingenuous that is. If you're going to talk about the case and not say what it's about, you probably shouldn't talk about the case. It's ridiculous, you know? We're seeing a lot of this shit, man. A lot. Like this shit here with Trump and the South African president, man. Talking about there's a genocide on Afrikaaner farmers. No, there's not, bro. They own over 70% of the farmland, and they're like 7% of the population or something like that, bro. This is the remnants of apartheid being undone, and Trump has a problem with this, which is fucking crazy, but it's not. It's just exposing true colors, man. We don't need to go full screen. With your boy in the corner. Let's go. All right, let's see what's up.
What would it take for you to be convinced that there's no white genocide in South Africa?
Well, I can answer that for President. It's for him. No, seriously. I'd rather have him answer. Yeah, I'd rather answer that. It will be.
Our president will respond to you.
Yeah, let me,
Thank you, Mr. President.
It will take President Trump listening to the voices of South Africans, some of whom are his good friends, like those who are here. When we have talks between us on the quiet table, it will take President Trump to listen to them. I'm not going to be repeating what I've been saying. I would say if there was Afrikaaner Farmer Genocide, I can bet you these three gentlemen would not be here, including my Minister of Agriculture. He would not be with me. So it'll take him, President Trump, listening to their stories, to their perspective. That is the answer to your question.
But, Mr. President, I must say that.
Damn.
No.
Ooh, that brother was smooth with that. He said, that is the answer to your question. Listening to the experiences of those in charge of the situation who are here with me, who wouldn't be if what you were saying is true. Listen to their stories. And from what I know earlier, or from earlier today, is that I think he said the Secretary of Agriculture is from the opposition party of him, and he invited him in to be a part of his administration. But he's from the opposition party. So if anybody's going to go at your head, if there's a genocide going on, it's going to be the people from the opposition party who's supposedly, the Afrikaners make up the majority of it. It's the ones that are on their side. So I bet you he don't listen, though. Let's see what he says.
Wait. We have thousands of stories talking about it. Sure. And we have documentaries, we have news stories, and that is Natalie here? Somebody here to turn that? I could show you a couple of things, and it has to be responded to.
Yeah, sure.
Let me see the articles, please, if you would, and turn the lights down. Turn the lights down, and just put this on. It's right behind you, Johan.
There's nothing this parliament can do, with or without you. People are going to occupy land. We require no permission from you, from the president, from no one. We don't care. We can do whatever you want to do. Who are you to tell us whether we can occupy land or not? We are going to occupy land. Yeah. South Africa occupy land. That's who we are. We don't ever want to do. We can withdraw my membership from this useless parliament. Honorable. Yes, honorable member. Must never be scared to kill. A revolution demands that at some point there must be killing, because the killing is part of a revolutionary act. Shoot to kill the mother, kill the poor, the farmer, kill
He's showing me a speech. It's supposed to be proof of white people getting massacred in South Africa.
The mayor of DJ in PE is a white man. So these people, when you want to hit them hard, go after a white man. They feel a terrible pain because you have touched a white man. Not because Mashaba and Suri will not be touched. They will be touched, no one. But we are starting with this whiteness. We are cutting the throat of whiteness. Shoot, kill, Yamasa, kill the brewer, the farmer.
You gotta understand what they're saying. It's chant.
The farmer.
The farmer.
Shoot to kill. Come on, sir. Kill the poor. The farmer. Kill the poor. The farmer.
I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I'm saying to you, we have not called for the killing of white people, at least for now. I can't guarantee the future.
Yeah, but I mean, do you understand?
Really wish you could understand this shit.
Especially as it gets shared on Twitter. They freak out. It sounds like a genocide on Twitter.
I can't take it.
Who will expropriate land without compensation, whether they like it or not. If they object, they can seek refugee in America.
So, I'm not supporting anybody talking about shooting anybody or having violence against anybody. I do hear him talking about revolution and violence being part of a revolution. And I do know the history, South Africa and apartheid, all that stuff that led to the modern day tensions that are there. So, are we going to be surprised that extremist groups rise out of situations like that? But also, the only extremist groups I've seen that have been capable of levying a genocide on another people have been like the powers running state kind of thing. It hasn't been a little rebel group, you know what I'm saying, or a movement. They can be problematic majorly, but genocide level. And they're going to talk about this, but then never say the word genocide in regard to Gaza. You see? And then they cut all refugees from everywhere. Can't come here except for white South Africans because they're victims of genocide. So why aren't we welcoming Palestinians? If we're opening the doors to victims of genocide, why aren't we welcoming them and stopping the bombs that are doing the genocide? Nope. They can't admit it because we got our hands dirty in that. Yeah, go look up Acre Trader. Go see who invests in that, and go look at American farmers losing their land, and look at where some of these Afrikaaner farmers that are coming in are getting land from. It's the same land. And look those things up. That's all I'm going to say. Look who invested in it. Follow the paper trail.
Now this is very bad. These are burial sites right here. Burial sites. Over 1,000
on the road.
White farmers, and those.
Dog, that ground has not been dug up. Those are not burial sites on the side of a road, my man.
Cars are lined up to pay love on a Sunday morning. Each one of those white things you see is a cross, and there's approximately 1,000 of them. They're all white farmers. The
so many people buried that close together?
And those cars
the ground
aren't,
looks undisturbed.
Driving, they're stopped there to pay respects to their family member who was killed. And it's a terrible sight. I've never seen anything like it. Both sides of the road, you have crosses.
How come all the cars are on one side of the road?
Those people were all killed.
How come no one's
Have they
out of their
told you
cars?
where that is, Mr. President? No, I'd like to know where that is, because this I've never seen. I don't. Okay.
I mean, it's in South Africa. That's
Where?
Let me clarify that, because
How
what
come they
you
never have the
saw,
nuance
the
ready?
speeches that were being made.
If you got intelligence and you're saying, look at this is exactly what it is, and I'm gonna be honest, it does not look like what he described it to be. It looks like a memorial of some sort along a road, and those crosses represent people, but it doesn't look like a burial site. Those things are really close together, and it's on the side of a road. Why would you have bodies buried on the side of a road as opposed to a burial ground somewhere? That doesn't make any sense, man. But also, if you have this intelligence, you can confirm all that, and he asks you where it is, like coordinate, city, town, area, region, something. He just said, it's in South Africa. Like, no, bro, you got to give them more than that if you got proof. Give them the proof. They don't got proof.
One, that is not government policy. We have a multi-party democracy in South Africa that allows people to express themselves, political parties to adhere to various...
Real quick, they took a page of Israel's book by putting together that whole presentation. Oh, look at this video. No, man, show us evidence, man, not a vignette.
Policies, and in many cases, or in some cases, those policies do not go along with government policy. Our government policy is completely against what he was saying, even in the parliament. And they're a small minority party, which is allowed to exist in terms of our constitution.
But you do allow them to take land.
No.
You do allow them to take land.
Nobody can
and
take
then when
land.
they take the land, they kill the white farmer. And when they kill the white farmer, nothing happens to them.
No, there is
nothing happens to
them.
them.
There is criminality in our country. People who do get killed, unfortunately through criminal activity, are not only white people. Majority of them are black people. And we have now
The farmers are black. The farmers are not black. I don't say that's good or bad, but the farmers are not black.
Oh, you cut me off right there. I mean, the fact he said the farmers ain't black in a black country, South Africa, and most of the farmland is owned by white people, tells you, how did it get that way, Brent? How did it get that way? I wonder. So start with an A and with a thigh. Come on, man. I don't know what it is, man. It's something. And I'm mixed, right? So I come from both black and white family, and I'm telling you, I didn't grow up around a lot of my white family because of acceptance reasons and other things, right? But I did get glimpses into a lot of things, like hearing how they would talk about black people. Hearing they talk about my dad, all kind of shit. Not even knowing I'm awake or whatever like that. Knowing how they talked about me before I was born. But then you bring this shit up and you try to talk to them about it in person. They shy away and they duck away from it. They don't want to deal with the nuance of it. They'll, oh, well, you know, that means like an ignorant person. Like, that's not, he didn't say nigger as in ignorant person. He meant it as in a black person he was mad at. And if you think that way about that black person, you think that way about this black person, right? It's transitive property. It's how it works. But then the excuses. One time, I was working in a restaurant, right? And when I first got there was other black employees. After a while, just however it went, they moved on to college. Things happen in life where I was the last one left, right? And we were back in the kitchen one day. I got two stories from this real quick. We were back in the kitchen, and I'm back there, and people were joking around, and one of the servers, a white girl, says, "Nigga, damn." And I was like, why has it got to be nigga, though? And you know, this is literally what was said to me by the girl who said, "Nigga, damn." Adam, don't make it weird. Me don't make it weird. For y'all. You know how weird it is for me to be the only black person in here hearing white people throwing around the N-word casually, like it's funny and shit, but I'm the one making it weird? You see how they shift the blame? Instead of being like, my bad, I shouldn't have said that. I apologize. You know, knowing it singles somebody out like that and then the history behind it, but no, they want to shift the blame onto me and my reaction to their shit for saying the word. Another time, and at this point, I wasn't just the only black person at this location. I was the only black one in the state because there's only 2 locations. In the whole state of Arizona, or there's 3. I'm sorry, at that time. There's 3. In Scottsdale, Phoenix, and Glendale. And those are all very populated areas. And one day, I have a section. It's a big good sized section with the tables, but it's in the back of the restaurant, right? And it was the day where there was they weren't using the whole restaurant. So I was the furthest back. And I look around in my section after a while, and these tables are like 6 tops, 5 tops. I think I got 3 or 4 of them. And every single person in my section is black, including me, the server. You go to the front of the restaurant, totally different story. All the black people in the restaurant in its entirety were in the back. And so I go to the manager, she's a young girl at the time, and I say, I don't think this happened on purpose, but this is a terrible look with having all the black people in the back of the restaurant and the only black server in the entire company, only black employee in the entire company serving all the black people in the back of the restaurant. This looks terrible. And all this was like, oh, it's not a big deal. They didn't do it on purpose. And I reiterated, I'm not saying they did it on purpose. I'm talking about how it looks. And you know why I went back there to say this to her, aside from the obvious? The people in my section were looking around. They knew what was up too. They saw it too. I'm not about to stand here and let that shit happen. Fuck that. If it's an accident, cool. This can never happen again, and there needs to be awareness of this. But you just want to slough it off, brush that shit up out of here, and tell me, basically, fuck off, it wasn't on purpose, deal with it. This is how that shit happens. When they put you in a racially disadvantageous, offensive, or isolating situation, and you call it out, they make you the problem. Don't play the race card. Who invented the fucking race card? You don't want the Joker to be used, don't put it in the deck, motherfucker. That's how I feel. Oh, wait. Speaking of South Africa, let's go check in with our favorite South African, Elon. Boy's looking down bad these days.
Elon Musk.
Looking down bad. He looks sad. He looked beat up. Looked like he lost all his friends. It's bad, bro. This is what happens when you fuck around and try to politically destabilize the world with your fucking bank account, dog. But nonetheless, we'll see what probably the soon-to-be former Tesla CEO.
For a conversation with Bloomberg's Michelle Hussein.
Bloomberg. At the Qatar Economic Forum.
Hello, everyone. And Elon Musk, welcome to Qatar Economic Forum. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm fine. How are you?
Very well, thank you, and very pleased to have you with us. You know, among those here in the audience in Doha are some you will know, people who have backed you financially over the years. Since you last spoke here in 2022, a lot has changed in your life. You're not only running multiple companies, you were doing that then, but now you also have a role in government. So first of all, I hope you won't mind if from time to time I have to move you from one topic to another because we have a lot to cover in the time we have. That will be all right? Okay.
Yeah,
well, let's start then with exactly the fact that you now have this combination of being a CEO and having a role as a government advisor. Tell me about your week. How does it work? What's the split of your time?
Well, I travel a lot. So I was in Silicon Valley yesterday morning. I was in LA yesterday evening. I'm in Austin right now. I'll be in DC tomorrow. I'll be there. Having dinner with the president tomorrow night, I believe. And then a whole bunch of cabinet secretary meetings, and then back to Silicon Valley on Thursday night.
But I mean, the balance of your time, is it, well, clearly it's a lot, but is it still the case, as you said a while ago, that it's about 1 to 2 days a week on your government work?
Yeah, that's correct.
And what does that mean for your corporate life? Because if we start with Tesla, the company has suffered in recent months what you've called blowback. So what is your plan for turning that around, the declining sales picture? And by what stage do you think you're going to be able to turn it around?
Oh, it's already turned around.
Give me some evidence for that. I've just been looking at the sales figures.
No evidence ever, man. It's already turned around, as evidenced by. No, dude, just making histrionic claims.
For Europe in April, which show very significant declines in the big markets.
Europe is our weakest market. We're strong everywhere else. No, our sales are doing well at this point. We don't anticipate any meaningful sales shortfall, and obviously the stock market recognizes that, since we're now back over $1 trillion in market cap. So clearly the market is aware of the situation. So it's already turned around.
But sales still down compared to this time last year.
In Europe.
In Europe, okay. And
yes, but that's true of all manufacturers. There's no exceptions.
You've had the biggest decline, bro, and it's not true of all manufacturers.
Does that mean that you're not going to be able?
They've had significant gains where you're lost as well.
Okay, but you would acknowledge, wouldn't you, that what you are facing, okay, let's just take it as Europe, what you are facing is a significant problem. This Tesla was an incredibly aspirational brand. People identified with it. They saw it as being at the forefront of the climate crisis, and now people are driving around with stickers in their cars saying, I bought this before we knew Elon was crazy.
And there are also people who are buying it because Elon's crazy, or however they may view it. So yes, we've lost some sales perhaps on the left, but we've gained them on the right.
No, you
the sales
haven't,
numbers
bro.
at this point
The
are
right
strong,
wing don't buy EVs,
and
dog.
we see no problem with demand.
So what do you...
And I mean, you can just look at the stock price. The
fact you even brought up left and right as a purchasing base is so stupid.
If you want the best inside information, the stock market analysts have that, and our stock wouldn't be trading near all-time highs if it was not, if things weren't in good shape. They're fine. Don't worry about it.
Okay. I was citing sales figures rather than share price. Well, tell me then how committed you are to Tesla. Do you see yourself, and are you committed to still being the chief executive of Tesla in 5 years' time?
Yes.
No doubt about that at all.
Well, no, I might die.
Okay, short of that.
I can't be CEO if I'm dead, so there's a slight amount of...
Does that mean that the value of your pay doesn't have any bearing on your decision?
Well, that's not really a subject of discussion in this forum. I think obviously there should be compensation for, if something incredible is done, that compensation should match that something incredible was done. But I'm confident that whatever some activist posing as a judge in Delaware happens to do will not affect the future compensation.
This is the judge who twice struck down the $56 billion pay package that was awarded to you. I think the value on the current value of stock options. Yeah.
Not a judge. The activist who is cosplaying a judge in a...
How is it possible to cosplay a judge and have an effect on anything if you're not a judge, Elon? I just got questions for you, bro.
Halloween costume.
Okay, that's your characterization. I think yes. On the current value of stock options, I think the actual...
Justice according to the law.
On the current value of stock options, I think the value of that pay package stands at about $100 billion. Are you saying you are relaxed about the value of your future pay package? Your decision to be committed to Tesla for the next 5 years, as long as you are still with us on this planet, is completely independent of pay?
No.
It's not independent. So pay is a relevant factor then to your commitment to Tesla?
A sufficient voting control such that I cannot be ousted by activist investors is what matters to me. And I've said this publicly many times. But let's not have this whole thing be a discussion of my alleged pay. It's not a money thing. It's a reasonable control.
He said this whole thing, they barely touched on it. He don't want to talk about his money and his pay at all. He don't want to talk about this shit. He don't want to expose how he gets paid based off of tax donations. He don't want to tell you how much he's taken for himself off of these grants.
Whole thing over the future of the company, especially if we're building millions, potentially billions of humanoid robots. I can't be sitting there and wanting to get tossed out by, for political reasons, by activists. That would be unacceptable. That's all that matters. Now let's move on.
Okay, well, just one question.
Let's move on.
Jesus.
One question before we move on to other companies, which is that I wonder if some of what has happened to Tesla in the last few months, did you take it personally?
Yes.
And did it make you regret any of, or think twice about your political endeavors?
Just think about it for the second time right now.
Because
What are these people? Why would they do that?
You serious,
How
dog?
wrong can they be?
You
They're
Sig
on the
Highland,
wrong,
bro.
they're on the wrong side of history.
Nazis get nullified, bro. That's how a lot of people think. You Sig Heil, that was the beginning of your real precipitous fall, bro. People already weren't feeling you like they were before, but you threw up them Sig Heils, bro. You became a Nazi to millions of people, including me. We don't fuck with Nazis, bro. Nazis get nullified, as evidenced by fucking history, dog.
And that's an evil thing to do. To go and damage some poor innocent person's car? To threaten to kill me? What's wrong with these people? I've not harmed anyone.
The people fucking up people's Teslas is whack. You don't fuck with other people's property. It's not Elon's car. He ain't getting that message. Don't fuck with people's cars, man. That's stupid. But for him to not understand why people are threatening him and not like, come on, dog. Look what you've done to all these towns. Look what you're doing right now with all your. Was it in North Carolina? I believe. I'm trying to remember where they had I want to say it's for. God damn it! What's it called? Is it for Starlink? Basically, they're running a bunch of turbines, like twice the amount of turbines for the processing at the center than they're supposed to. It's polluting the town, making people sick, and it's really having a disastrous effect on the area. You don't know why people would want to hurt you, dog? You're hurting people. You ever heard the phrase hurt people, hurt people? If you hurt somebody, they're going to want to hurt you, bro. Go slap somebody in the face and go around slapping people. Find the one who don't want to slap you back right away. Go ahead.
So,
fucking idiot.
Something needs to be done about them. And a number of them are going to prison. And they deserve it.
You need to be in prison, dog.
And more will.
You're referring to the attacks on Tesla showrooms, but I think
Yeah. Firing bullets into showrooms and burning down cars is unacceptable.
Yeah.
Those people will go to prison, and the people that funded them and organized them will also go to prison. Don't worry.
But wouldn't you?
We're coming for you.
Some people act on their own, dog.
But wouldn't you acknowledge that some of the people who turned against Tesla in Europe were upset at your politics, and very few of them would have been violent in any way. They just objected to what they saw you say or do politically.
Well, it's certainly fine to object to political things, but it's not fine to resort to violence and hanging someone in effigy and death threats.
Talking about the nonviolent people, bro.
That's obviously not
Focus
okay.
on the question.
That's absurd. That is in no way justified.
I wish I could be like a referee for these. Like, nope, she didn't ask you that, bro. Focus on the question. I wish I could make the third party in that, like the mediator, or moderator. Hey, no, stick to it. That'd be awesome.
At all. In any way, shape, or form. And
Answer the question.
Some of the legacy media nonetheless have sought to justify it, which is unconscionable. Shame on them.
Let's talk about your other companies then and other business areas, SpaceX. I saw that you said in a speech at the West Point Military Academy recently that the future of warfare is AI and drones. And obviously defense is an increasingly booming sector with the state of the world at the moment. Do you see SpaceX moving into weaponized drones?
That seemed like a yes to me.
You certainly ask interesting questions.
That seemed like a big yes to me.
Impossible to answer. SpaceX is it's the space launch leader. So SpaceX doesn't do drones. SpaceX builds rockets, satellites, and internet terminals. So SpaceX has a very dominant position in space launch. So of the mass launch to orbit this year, SpaceX will probably do 90%. China will do the half of the remaining amount, so 5%, and the rest of the world, including the rest of the US, will do about 5%. So SpaceX will do about 10 times as much as the rest of the world combined, or 20 times as much as China, and China is doing actually a very impressive job. The reason for this is that we are putting into orbit the largest satellite constellation the world has ever seen by far. So I think at this point, about maybe approaching 80% of all active satellites in orbit are SpaceX. And they're providing high bandwidth global connectivity.
80% of satellites in orbit are SpaceX? I did not know that. That seemed like taking over the world type shit. I don't like that ratio. That's the empire. That's 80% of the satellites. There's a lot up there, dog. That's fucking alarming.
Throughout the world. In fact, this connection is on a SpaceX connection. So I think this is a very good thing because it means that we can provide low-cost, high-bandwidth internet to parts of the world that don't have it or where it's very expensive. And I think the single biggest thing you can do to lift people out of poverty and help them is giving them an internet connection. Because once you have the internet connection, you can learn anything for free on the internet. And you can also sell your goods and services to the global market. Once you have knowledge by the internet and the ability to engage in commerce, that this is going to greatly improve quality of life for people throughout the world, and it has. And I'd just like to thank anyone in the audience who may have been helpful in, with Starlink and getting it to approved in their country. And I think it's doing a lot of good in the countries that have approved it, which is, I think at this point, 130 countries are very happy with it. I don't currently anticipate SpaceX getting into the weapons business. That's not an aspiration. We're frequently asked to do weapons programs, but we have thus far declined.
Do you envisage?
I would bet money that's not going to stay the same. I would bet money that they're going to get involved with making weapons.
Envisage SpaceX or indeed Starlink as a separate entity publicly listing in the near future or at all?
It's possible that Starlink may go public at some point in the future.
And what would be the time frame?
Starlink.
What kind of time frame are you considering?
I'm in no rush. I'm in no rush to go public. Public is, I guess, a way to potentially make more money, but at the expense of a lot of public company overhead and inevitably a whole bunch of lawsuits, which are very annoying. So really something needs to be done about the shareholder derivative lawsuits in the U.S. Because it allows plaintiffs' law firms who don't represent the shareholders to pretend that they represent the shareholders by getting a puppet plaintiff with a few shares to initiate a massive lawsuit against the company. And the irony being that, extreme irony, that even if the class they purport to represent were to vote that they don't want the lawsuit would still continue. So how can it be a class action representing a class if the class vote against it? And that's the bizarre situation we've got in the U.S. It's a dire need of reform.
I mean, it's stuff like shareholder primacy, all that shit. You need to be beholden to the customer and to the greater good of the country that you're profiting from operating in. But legally, they got to be beholden to shareholders before any of that. A lot of companies are domiciled in Delaware where shareholder primacy is still the law. Look that shit up. Look up the Dodge brothers suing Henry Ford, because he wanted to use a lot of their surplus money to enrich their staff, grow their operations, and give back to the public. and the Dodge brothers sued him and said that he wasn't adhering to the Shareholder Primacy Act. And by doing that, he'd be going against the shareholders and also hurting the industry and skewing it because they would have to pay their workers more and all this shit. And they won. Look up shareholder primacy.
As anyone who's run a public company, you've experienced this. It's an absurd situation that needs to change.
Well, do you think Donald Trump might change it? You've certainly got his ear. I imagine that you've put this to him. Is this something you're trying to change before any Starlink IPO?
He's trying to buy it from him, not change it.
Well,
they're trying to buy the change.
It would need a law to be passed.
That Trump.
The trouble being that you need 60 Senate votes, and the Democrats will vote against it. The plaintiff's bar is, I believe, the second largest contributor to the Democratic Party. That's the issue. At the state level, this can be solved. And I should say, Texas recently passed a law which, at least the state level, made lawsuits much more reasonable because you have to get at least 1 in 33 shareholders to agree that they are part of a class of shareholders. 3%. Okay. This will really help with frivolous lawsuits.
Okay. Let's talk about AI, which is in so many of your businesses and in all our worlds in different ways. It's one of the big changes, the development of generative AI, since you last spoke to this forum 3 years ago. You're in this space, of course, with Grok, which almost everyone will know. You co-founded OpenAI and then left, and you've obviously got a legal battle with OpenAI and Sam Altman. I wonder if you could say something about the status of that, because you were together in Saudi Arabia with the president last week, with Sam Altman. In the same place at the same time.
Sam was in the neighborhood.
Okay, so does that mean you are pushing ahead with the lawsuit against OpenAI?
Yes. So look, I came up with the name OpenAI as an open source and as a nonprofit, and I funded OpenAI for the first roughly $50 million, and it was intended to be a nonprofit open source company, and now they're trying to change that for their own financial benefit into a for-profit company that is closed source. So this would be like, let's say you funded a nonprofit to help preserve the Amazon rainforest, but instead of doing that, they became a lumber company, chopped down the forest, and sold the wood. You'd be like, wait a second, that's not what I funded. That's OpenAI.
They've made some changes to their corporate structure, though, haven't they, since, in recognition of what you've said? And
no, that's just what they told the media.
Okay. They have partly walked back their plan to restructure the business. I guess that's made no difference to how you feel about it. So you're determined to see them in court?
Of course.
Okay. Well, that's certainly going to be one to watch. I also wanted to ask you about AI and regulation, because when you were here last talking to John Micklethwait, you had some pretty strong words about the risk that AI poses, and you said that you really felt what the US was missing was a federal AI regulator, that something along the lines of the Food and Drug Administration or the Federal Aviation Administration. Now, you're clearly now in a zone where you're more on the cutting regulation side than wanting new regulators. So has your view changed on the need for an AI regulator?
Well, it's not that I don't think there should be regulators. You can think of regulators like referees on the field in sports. There should be some number of referees, but you shouldn't have so many referees that you can't kick the ball without hitting one. In most fields in the U.S., the regulatory burden has grown over time to the point where it's like having more referees than players on the field. And this is a natural consequence of an extended period of prosperity. It's very important to appreciate this. This has happened throughout history. When you have an extended period of prosperity with no existential war, there's no cleansing function for unnecessary laws and regulations. So what happens is that every year more laws and more regulations are passed, because
bro, we've been in war for all but like a year of the existence of this nation over here. I don't know what you're talking about with that shit.
Legislators are going to legislate, regulators are going to regulate, and you'll get the steady pile of more and more laws and regulations over time until everything is illegal. And let me give you an example of a truly absurd situation. Under the Biden administration, SpaceX was sued for not hiring asylum seekers in the U.S. Now, the problem is it's actually illegal for SpaceX under ITAR, International Traffic in Arms Regulations, to hire anyone who is not a permanent resident of the United States, because the premise being that they will take advanced rocket technology and return to their home country if they're not a permanent resident. So we're simultaneously in a situation where it is illegal to hire asylum seekers, and it is also illegal to hire asylum seekers. And the Biden's Department of Justice chose to prosecute us despite both paths being illegal. Damned if you do, damned if you don't.
But my question was specifically about a regulator for AI, which you said 3 years ago was needed, and you said we need to be proactive on the regulation of AI rather than reactive. Have you changed your mind on that?
No, of course not. No, of course not. What I'm saying is that there should be some referees on the field, a few referees, but you shouldn't have a field jam-packed with referees such that you could not kick a ball in any direction without hitting one. So the fields that have been around for a long time, such as automotive, so aerospace, the sort of food and drug industries, are over-regulated, but the new fields, like artificial intelligence, are under-regulated. In fact, there is no regulator at all.
So there should be. Do you still think that?
Yes, I'm simply saying, which I think is just basic common sense, that you want to have at least you want to have a few referees in the field. You don't want to have an army of referees, but you want to have a few referees on any given field, in any given sport, or even any given arena, industrial arena, to help that public safety is taken care of, but you don't want to have. So there's a proper number of referees. Like I said, it's actually.
He said to the public safety. He mentioned public safety and regulators, but then got rid of, through his Doge cuts, the necessity for auto manufacturers to report deaths by vehicle, model, and manufacturer. He has the most safety violations by far in the aerospace industry. Tesla has by far the most accidents that end up in harming and killing people. I can't speak to Starlink, but everybody who's been investigating him were targets of Doge and their cuts and their firings. And he has the audacity to talk about public safety. Look at the FAA. SpaceX is trying to step into the space that the FAA occupies. Trust and believe. And he's trying to get rid of them and make that happen. And look at all these planes falling out of the damn sky. Look at all of the mess that's happened since then. This dude is full of shit. Don't ever let public safety come out of his mouth and be something you believe he's interested in.
It's very easy to visualize this when compared to sports. If the whole field is packed with referees, that would look absurd. But if there were no referees at all, your game's not going to be as good.
Okay, so let's then talk about your new world, your role advising government. You are in this unique and unprecedented position of having billions of dollars worth of contracts with the federal government yourself, mostly through SpaceX, and also now an insider's knowledge of it because of Doge. Can you see that there is a conflict of interest or a potential conflict of interest in broad terms just through that very fact?
If he says no.
I don't think so, actually. There have been many advisors.
Motherfucker. Just like Crowder earlier. They're incapable of seeing their own shit or admitting to it. He knows.
History and the U.S. government and others who have had economic interests. And I am simply an advisor. I don't have formal power. And that's it. The president can choose to accept my advice or not. And that's how it goes. If there's a single contract that any of my companies have received that people think is somehow not was awarded improperly, it would immediately be front page news, to say the least. And if I didn't mention it, certainly my competitors would. So if you're not seeing that, then clearly there's not a conflict of interest.
There's another way, though, to look at it, that, for example, you have many competitors, whether it's companies like Boeing or companies who would like to do more of the kind of work you do for NASA, Blue Origin, Rocket Lab. And because Doge is in every federal government department, you or people who work for Doge, and you are the driving force behind it, have an insight into those companies' affairs and those companies' relationships with the federal government.
No, all we do is we review the organization to see if the organization has departments that are no longer relevant, and then are the contracts that are being awarded good value for money. In fact, frankly, the bar is not particularly high. Is there any value for money in a contract? And if there isn't, then we make recommendations to the Secretary. The Secretary can then choose to take those actions or not take those actions, and that's it. And then any action that is as a function of Doge is posted to the Doge website and to the Doge.gov or at Doge handle on the X platform. So it's complete transparency, and I've not seen any.
How come you didn't tell us? All right, so what I've seen is, numbers-wise, they claim they're going to save us $1 trillion. The cuts were more like 160 billion, right? But it cost them 135 billion in order to make them cuts and to facilitate them. So net is $25 billion cut at the cost of 135 billion.
Okay.
Tell us those numbers if you're being transparent, bro.
Case where, to the best of my knowledge, there's even been an accusation of conflict, because it is completely and utterly transparent.
Okay.
That's it.
And what about the international dimension? Now, let's think about Starlink. Starlink is obviously a very, very good internet service. It's sought after all over the world. It's critical to the front line in Ukraine. It has also had more contracts coming its way, and there is some evidence that companies are allowing access to it because they want to be close to the Trump administration and send the right signal. So Bloomberg broke news today that the South African government is working around the rules on black ownership in order to allow Starlink in, and that is being done on the eve of the visit that President Ramaphosa is going to make to the White House. Do you recognize that as a conflict of interest?
No, of course not. First of all, you should be questioning why are there racist laws in South Africa? That's the first problem. That's what you should be asking.
You grew up in apartheid. Your dad had fucking emerald mines with fucking underpaid black people. You had black house servants. You grew. Oh my God, dude. You grew up in one of the crown jewels of racism, being the basis of the law. Oh my God. Oh, this motherfucker here.
Attacking. It's improper for there to be racist laws in South Africa. The whole idea with what Nelson Mandela, who was a great man, proposed was that all races should be on an equal footing in South Africa. That's the right thing to do, not to replace one set of racist laws with another set of racist laws, which is utterly wrong and improper.
They're balancing out the inequities of apartheid. Just like what needs to happen in America, bro. Look at where the Native Americans... You see, natives should have great land in this country, and they don't. Why? Why? Colonization. Same shit that happened over there, bro. You want to balance the scales, you got to do right by the people who got wrong. You don't just let the people who did wrong keep benefiting and have their foot on the necks, even though it's unofficial now because the laws changed. That's what you really want.
So that's the deal, that all races should be treated equally, and there should be no preference given to one or the other. Whereas there are now 140 laws in South Africa that give that basically give strong preference to if you're a black South African and
native. Say native, brother, native.
Not otherwise. And so now I'm in this absurd situation where I was born in South Africa but cannot get a license to operate in Starlink because I'm not black.
Well, it looks
Does
like
that
that's
seem
about.
right?
Look at your colonizer ancestors, my friend, and blame them. Don't blame the people balancing the scales. Blame the people who threw them out of whack, which is your ancestors, bro. You gotta look backwards, but you ain't gonna do that.
Looks like that. Right to you? Looks like that's about to change.
I just asked you a question. Please answer. Does that seem right to you?
Well, those rules were designed to bring.
Yes or no?
Those rules were designed to bring about an era of more economic equality in South Africa, and it looks like the government has found a way around those rules for you.
I asked you a question.
This is your.
This motherfucker is so disingenuous. This is why people medicinal ass whoopers need to come back. At least a slap, a medicinal slap. Like, bro, get your shit right. What the fuck wrong with you? That's medicinal, bro. They just gave you the medicine. Try and help you.
Everyone wants to hear from you.
I asked you a question.
Missing
yes or
from
no?
society.
Not for me.
Laws, yes or no?
Not for me to answer. I have got a question for you about your government work, though, and the amount of savings.
Why do you like racist laws?
This is not for me to answer. Come on.
Yes, it is.
Now, you wouldn't be trying to dodge a question.
You have to ask a
It's difficult
question.
for
I
you
answer
to
my
answer.
question. No, you answer mine.
I think if you, I'm sure you can have that conversation directly with the South African government if you want to. I want to ask you about the total.
I can't believe it. That's not good.
I want to ask you about the total
How do you
amount.
love racist laws?
I want to ask you about the total amount that you're planning to save through Doge's work. Before the election, you said it was going to be at least $2 trillion. The number currently on Doge.gov is $170 billion. That's a big change. What happened to the $2 trillion?
It cost so 100. So maybe a 35 then. Maybe they've saved 35. Or how much did it cost to get that extra? Because last I saw was at 160. So how much did that extra 10 bill cost to facilitate? If it was 135 bill of that 100. Oh my God, this shit is so sloppy.
Well, would you expect it to happen immediately?
Well, is it going to happen? Because Doge is supposed to run till next July.
I mean, your question is absurd in its fundamental premise. Are you assuming that on day, within a few months, there's an instant $2 trillion saved?
No, I'm not at all. I'm just asking, is that still your
saying
aim?
you're not on track, bro.
Is it still your aim to get to $2
given
trillion?
the amount of time? Have we not made good progress given the amount of time?
No.
That's exactly what I'm asking. So is it still your aim to go from 170 billion to 2 trillion?
The ability of Doge to operate is a function
Swarming,
of
dog.
whether the government, and this includes the Congress, is willing to take our advice. We're not the dictators of the government, we are the advisors. And so we can advise, and the progress we've made thus far, I think, is incredible. The Doge team has done incredible work.
Now I hear excuses.
But the
Par for the
magnitude
Trump
of
administration
the savings is proportionate to the support we get from Congress and from the executive branch of the government in general. So we're not the dictators, we are the advisors. But thus far, for advisors,
why were y'all showing up forcibly at
the
departments,
Doge team, to
locking
their
people
credit,
out if you're not? Come on, bro.
has made
it's not advisor shit.
Incredible progress.
He said they're advisors, but they forced people out of buildings. They did not let people in buildings. That's not advice. That's action. That's force. It's not advice.
You've talked about $4 billion a day being saved, but that won't get, which is, and I think everyone can agree that combating waste and inefficiency in government is a very good thing. But if you add that up, it's not going to get to 2 trillion over the lifetime of Doge.
Not even close.
I'm sorry.
The 4 billion a day, if Doge is going to run till next July, is not going to get you to $2 trillion.
Ketamine's kicking in, yo.
But you still say it's your aim, so we'll take that as read.
There's what Doge. I mean, I feel you're somewhat trapped in the NPC dialogue tree of a traditional journalist. So it's difficult when I'm conversing with someone who's trapped in the dialogue tree of a conventional journalist, because it's like talking to a computer.
Says you.
Doge is an advisory group.
Oh,
we are doing the best we can as an advisory group. The progress made thus far as an advisory group is excellent. I don't think any advisory group has done better in the history of advisory groups of the government. Now, we do not make the laws, nor do we control the judiciary, nor do we control the
Whoever gave the advice to use Navajo code talkers is a reason why a lot of the world is not part of a Nazi regime rooted in Germany, bro. I would say that might be some of the all-time greatest advice ever given within the government. You're not on that level. Calm yourself down.
The executive branch, we are simply advisors. In that context, we are doing very well. Beyond that, we cannot we cannot take action beyond that because we are not some sort of imperial dictator of the government. There are three branches of the government that that are to some degree opposed to that level of cost savings. But nonetheless, let's not criticize whether there's 4 trillion, and instead look at the fact that 160 billion has been saved, and more will be saved too.
Oh my God, bro, that's literally less than. What's that? Let's do the math. 160 billion at a 2 trillion, bro. What are you at, like 0.26, 0.16%? What is that? Well, I don't know what that math is. I don't got my phone next to me. I feel like you're less than 1% of the way to your goal, and you're trying to give yourself credit for being nowhere. That's incredible. It's actually incredible. And if the other side made claims, your opposition, and they didn't live up to them, you'd be the first one saying they aren't living up to what they're saying. All of these political figures are so pathetic, it makes me sick. It doesn't matter if you're left or right. You don't hold yourself to the same standard you hold your opposition to. You're pathetic. You should hold your side and yourself to a higher standard level of scrutiny. Make sure you're on point, but you don't do that. Y'all are pathetic.
And as I said, I think everyone can agree that cutting waste and indeed fraud in any government and being responsible with taxpayers' money is a very good thing. So
yes.
I can see that you're proud of that work. I do want to ask you about US aid and the comments that Bill Gates made the other day, and I know that you called him.
Yeah, he's a huge liar.
I know you've said that already.
That's
wondered.
Also,
and I'm just.
Who does Bill Gates think he is to make comments about the welfare of children, given that he frequented Jeffrey Epstein?
Okay, well.
Just like your boy Trump, though. Hold on. Let's be consistent again, dog. If you're gonna criticize friends of Epstein, you're working for one, and you've been sucking up to one. The one that Epstein said there was no closer human to him for 10-year period. Inconsistent, pathetic peons, man.
He said he regrets those, and he spent a lot of his own money on philanthropy around the world over the years. My question to you is: have you looked at the data to check if he might be right that the cuts to USAID might cost millions of lives?
Yes. I'd like him to show us any evidence whatsoever that is true. It's false. What we found with USAID cuts, and by the way, they haven't all been cut. The parts of USAID that we found to be even slightly useful were transferred to the State Department. So they've not been deleted. They've simply been transferred to the State Department. But many times over with USAID and other organizations, when they've said, "Oh well, this is going to help, children, or it's going to help some disease eradication or something like that," and then when we ask for any evidence whatsoever, I say, "Well, please connect us with this group of children so we can talk to them and understand more about their issue." We get nothing. They don't even try to come up with a show orphan, meaning like this sort of like, well, can we at least see a few kids? Like, where are they? If they're in trouble, we'd like to talk to them and talk to their caregivers.
Okay, well,
and then we get nothing as a response, because it's what we find is an enormous amount of fraud and graft.
Okay, let me put this example to you.
Very little of it actually gets to the kids, if anything at all.
Okay, let me put this example to you, because you grew up in South Africa, so you'll know the impact of HIV.
If you got like, give an example of this happening, like name entities that are doing what you're saying. If you're the one eradicating it, it should be easy to have these examples on hand. That's why there's no specificity to any of this. That's why he's trying to tout being 1% along to his goal as a good thing, that he should be patted on his back for. It's probably the same shit he's saying at these Tesla board meetings, you know? Well, we got 70% drop, but we still sold this. Like, get the fuck out of here, you know?
HIV/AIDS well, and this is why I asked about the data. The US led on international efforts to combat HIV/AIDS treatment, prevention, and there's an initiative called PEPFAR, which is credited with saving 26 million lives in the last 20 years. It was part of the foreign aid freeze, then there was a limited waiver. Its services are disrupted, and UNAIDS says if permanently discontinued, there will be another 4 million AIDS-related deaths by 2029. So if you look at that example, which is backed up by data, in 2023, 630,000 people died of AIDS-related illnesses, then perhaps Bill Gates's figures are not wrong. Millions of lives could be lost.
First of all, the program, the AIDS medication program is continuing. So your fundamental premise is wrong. It is continuing. Now, do you have another example?
Elon, not in its entirety.
That it is false.
Not in its entirety. There's a limited waiver, and UNAIDS have said that not all of the services that were previously funded by USAID are continuing. So that's why I put that example to you.
Okay, well, which ones aren't being funded? I'll fix it right now.
Okay, well,
I thought you
actually
were just
they're
an
all on the
advisor.
UN.
I thought you were just an advisor, not the one that could force the action to happen. You'll fix it right now. How? Or are you going to suggest the fix right now? You just said definitively you'll fix it right now, right after saying all you are is an advisor and you have no power.
UNAIDS website, so you'll be able to see them. But mostly they are to do with prevention. And for example, the rollout of a drug called lenacapavir, which was hailed as one of the biggest breakthroughs against AIDS for many years, which came out last year. So if you are, perhaps, I'm sure UNAIDS would be delighted if you're able to look at that again.
Yes, but well, if in fact this is true, which I doubt it is, then we'll fix it.
Okay, fine.
By advising, we'll advise that they fix it.
Finally, your political influence. I wondered whether you have decided yet how much you're going to spend on the upcoming midterms. Is it you spent a lot more money on the last U.S. election than you envisaged when you were speaking here 3 years ago.
Please spend all of it, because you lose when you spend money.
Are you going to
Spend
continue to spend at that kind of level on future elections?
I think in terms of political spending, I'm going to do a lot less in the future.
And why?
I just want to point out how many times this guy, and I'm not saying I'm a fan of his name, but he's brought up George Soros a lot of times as being somebody who funds political maneuverings. This guy has spent the most money ever to steer elections in his time here. Nobody spent more than Elon. So he can't drop nobody's names as far as being, you know, financial swayers of the political spectrum.
Why is that?
I think I've done enough.
We all do.
Is it because of blowback?
Well, if I see a reason to do political spending in the future, I will do it. I do not currently see a reason.
But she asked you a question, please answer it.
Beyond
about
the US, how often do you speak to President Putin?
I don't speak to President Putin.
You've never spoken to President Putin?
I was on a video call with him once about 5 years ago.
Okay. That's the only.
Why would you think I speak to President Putin? Oh, you must. I get it.
Because
You
I've
believe
heard
the
you
legacy.
speak. Actually, I've heard you speak about it. For example, in your West Point speech, you said, "Oh, I challenged President Putin to was it an arm wrestle?" And I know the Wall Street Journal has reported your reported conversations.
yes.
If you're saying they haven't happened other than once, I'll take that as read.
Is there a worse publication on the face of the earth than the Wall Street Journal? I wouldn't use that to.
She used your words at West Point first, bro.
That newspaper
Refer to
is
those.
the worst newspaper in the world. And if there's one newspaper that should be pro-capitalist, it's the one with Wall Street in the name. But it isn't. So I have the very lowest opinion of the Wall Street Journal. absolute nonsense. And you clearly believe the tripe that you've written. You've read in
your
those
words,
papers.
Elon.
I read very widely, and I'm putting these questions to you so that you have an opportunity to respond to them, which you are, and for which we're all grateful to hear your responses.
Yes.
Okay, we are out of time. So
you mentioned me challenging. I did so on the X platform. I challenged Vladimir Putin to single combat over the. But I didn't talk to him. That was a post on the X platform.
Great. That's why I asked you, and you've clarified and explained. Thank you. That's why I was asking whether you have had reported conversations, and you've said you haven't, other than a video call. Okay.
Typical legacy media lies.
Okay. Listen, I actually thought I might give Grok the last word because when I asked Grok what your hardest challenge is, it said the strain of managing multiple high-stake ventures amid financial, regulatory, and public relations crises. And I wondered whether you recognize that characterization and whether you do think that this is a pivotal year in your life.
Well, every year has been somewhat pivotal, and this one's no different. So, I mean, in terms of interesting things that hopefully are accomplished this year, getting Starship to be fully reusable, so that we catch both the booster and the ship, which would be the first fully reusable orbital rocket ever in history, which would be a profound breakthrough, as the essential breakthrough necessarily to make life multiplanetary and ultimately become a spacefaring civilization. We've got Neuralink, which is now helped 5 patients restore capability using the telepathy implant, where they're able to control a computer simply by thinking. We'll be doing our first patient to restore sight with our blind sight implant, which is either end of this year or early next. In fact, that first patient might be in UAE, since we have a relationship with UAE and the Cleveland Clinic there. I think what's running on the AI front, we are close to what you might call AGI, or digital superintelligence. I think we are seeing an explosion in digital superintelligence here. And then we've got at Tesla, we'll be launching unsupervised autonomy, basically self-driving cars with no one in them, in Austin next month. So it's a big year for sure. Many other things.
You're not going to catch up to Waymo. They got years
in the works too.
On you in that.
I'm a technologist first and foremost.
Elon Musk, thank you very much for joining us here at Qatar Economic Forum. Thank you.
Oh, wait. That was an interesting conversation. I really wish we lived in a world where people would answer questions directly and pay attention to nuance. That is the only way we're actually going to get to a sustainable point and fix a lot of these things we're up against. They're complex, but if you break it down, every level of complexity becomes simple, but you have to look into every level of complexity. Or else you're going to miss something, and it's going to fester, and it's going to grow, and we're going to still have problems like we have now. It's not going to get better. The only way out is with a magnifying glass, fine-tooth comb, and accountability, man. Truth and reconciliation involves being thorough. It's not skimming over the surface. You got to pick up the rug and see everything that's been swept under that motherfucker. And every time they dodge a question or try to ignore the nuance, that's a little element being swept under the rug, adding to that heap. And now everybody tripping when they walk into the living room over that heap under the rug. We got to clean this house, man, for real. Like, really clean the house. Deep clean. And until we do, we're going to be sneezing. We're going to keep seeing these roaches. We're going to keep seeing rats. It's going to smell bad, all that shit, till you actually clean the fucking house. Whether we do it or not, we'll see. But at some point, it will get condemned if we don't. And once it's condemned, you tear it down, and something else gets built in this place. If that's what we want, that's what we're going to get. On that note, I'm going to holler at y'all. Hopefully tomorrow. I'm trying to get back to this on the daily. I know this last month, me being gone over life stuff, but I'm managing. So hope everybody has a good day. Appreciate those who tuned in. And I know that we ain't going to have no shortage of content being given to us by just the current event, guys, you know? So I'll holler at you next time. It's your boy Adam. Peace out. Damn it. Okay, for real though, it's your boy Adam. Peace out. I'm gonna click the right button to stop. I was anticlimactic as fuck after all that, but that's how it goes.